7:01. Some announcements before we begin. This meeting is being broadcast on local cable TV and recorded for rebroadcast on the local cable channels. The meeting is also accessible for remote participants using the login information on the agenda. Pawtucket Regional School District is having a State of Our School District tomorrow night at 6 p.m. in the auditorium. We have 2 project fair and forums coming up. The first one is this Thursday at 5:30. This is on the MVP River Road project and Route 113 corridor planning. We also have a special select board meeting next Monday night at 6 o'clock regarding the proposed Whittier Tech building project. The superintendent will be here to answer questions on that. And the Sage Center newsletter and upcoming events is out. That's in the packet online, as is the Historical Commission's Tales of Our Town. It's an interesting posting this month on sleighs and sleds and skates and the old time fun. Notice of award, the town received a $1 million MassWorks grant to support reconstruction of the Middle Street Bridge. That's great news, a lot of hard work by our team. And the standing call for volunteers, FY24 positions. There are many available on the website. On the homepage, go to the volunteer section. And a reminder to subscribe for email, town agendas, news, and announcements on the same homepage. I also just wanted to say over the weekend on Saturday, the Conservation Commission and Invasive Species Working Group had a work day over at Cherry Hill. It was well attended. There were 2 separate sessions, and the conservation agent did a tremendous job organizing it and giving a lesson on invasives, and we got some great work done. Did you go to the afternoon session as well?
I did, yeah.
Great.
I was tired that night.
I bet you were. So lots of good stuff happening in our town for sure. All right, under regular business A, the first item is joint meeting with the Board of Assessors to consider appointment of William Studzinski to the open Board of Assessors seat. So how do you want to handle this? Do you want to speak to why you want to propose Bill, or do you have any questions for him? Either of you?
My question was there a process involved, or I didn't see any public notice for a call? And we got the package was the first notice that I knew that they were looking up to fill, so that's all.
Do you want to answer that, Rich?
Just quickly say that both Lori and I have known Attorney Studzinski for many years. He's a real estate attorney in town. Lived in town for 20 some odd years, 21 years. And he works in town at 291 Main Street and involved in, I believe, the Zoning Board of Appeals for a number of years. We think he'd make a great addition to the Board of Assessors because he knows real estate, he knows the law, and we look forward to him helping us out.
Mm-hmm. So could you speak to Chris's question about how this came up? Maybe not everybody knows why there's an open position.
Okay, Jen Palsano moved out of town. She closed on her house on the 31st of October, causing the position to be open. And
okay.
So we asked Bill if he would be interested, and he was.
Great. Do you have any questions?
No.
I do. How long is the term? Is it to fulfill the whole term until the next election?
Typically, it's to.
So Jen's term was up in this upcoming election in May, so it'll be up until.
I'll make a motion we accept William Studzinski to the Board of Assessors to fulfill the term.
Second.
All right, any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
So did you already vote, Rich, or are you voting
No,
tonight?
but we have a meeting scheduled here, so
Okay.
Jen was our chair, so I guess
The assistants, yeah.
okay, so I'll call the meeting to order. Do you want to make a motion, Lori?
I make a motion to accept
The point.
the appointment of Bill Studzinski to the Board of Assessors.
And I'll second. All in favor? Aye.
Great. Thank you, Bill.
And
Appreciate you volunteering.
right.
Yeah.
And I got all dressed up.
So you got a second and vote on that adjournment, right?
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Great, thanks.
You just want us on the swearing in?
Yeah.
Bill, thanks for coming in on the pinch hit.
When's your next meeting?
Wednesday.
Night?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll stop by, I'll swear Bill in before the meeting. That works.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
All right.
Thanks.
Let's see. The next item is, application for appointment to Council on Aging. So we have two applicants, Heather Connor and Nancy Lee. Hi, Heather. Would you like to say something about why you're volunteering, or?
Sure. In the past couple of years, I got involved, I retired a few years ago, and I offered to drive for Meals on Wheels, so I do that a couple of days a week. Sort of started as a substitute driver, and so now I've kind of been regularly fit in on either Mondays or whenever someone has been away. So I drive for West Newbury, and we also cover Groveland's route. West Newbury is a very small group right now that take advantage, but Groveland is a couple hours, it's a big long group. And I just really enjoyed, for someone who's so kind of shy and quiet, it's a little struggle to get in that car, but as soon as I see all the faces and everybody, I love it. And then I've helped with some other events, and I was asked if I was interested in helping, and I'm not really sure why the need is there, but I thought I'd love to. I like to be a part of giving some listening, really, what's going on. And I know they make a great team, Christine and Jen
Mhm.
there.
Great.
That's why.
Thank you, appreciate that. And let's see, I lost track. So Nancy, I don't know who Nancy is.
Yes, hi, how are you?
Good.
Well, I applied because this is the first time in 50 years I'm not working. So I'm not retiring. I'm repurposing my life. So that's what I had hoped to do. And because the majority of my career has been in patient assistance and reimbursement, one of the greatest joys of my life is being able to help patients with access to medications. And it's very, very difficult this day and age, particularly for Medicare patients, to find assistance. So those are one of the skill sets that have brought a lot of joy to me, being able to help people. So this is the first time I've decided that it's time for me to give back to my community, as I have never ever had that luxury of time. And being a senior, I thought this might be a good opportunity to help my fellow seniors to enjoy our golden years. So I'm happy to help in any way I possibly can. And I thank you very much for allowing me to have a few minutes of your time for consideration.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you. So are there associate members on the Council on Aging?
They're not associate members, however, I did talk to Christine, I said you have two great applicants. And,
Yeah.
can you kind of give me a list of all the things that you need help with? Because there's no shortage of volunteer needed time down there. Meals on Wheels is a good example.
Mhm.
The food bank
Pantry,
that we have,
yeah.
the food pantry. Christine said whoever doesn't get appointed, she's gonna be reaching out to tomorrow regardless, to make sure that they're still included on Council on Aging.
So you're saying it's just one opening?
Yes.
It's just one
Okay,
opening.
that wasn't mentioned.
Sorry. Well, I think based on Heather's experience already, I would suggest appointing her and then following up to see if we could get Nancy involved. I mean, does that make sense?
That was a motion, I'll second it.
It was a suggestion because I'm not making motions.
Yeah, so I guess I'll make that motion. And after we have a second, I'd like to ask
Okay.
Nancy a question.
Second.
Okay, so Nancy, I really appreciate the fact that you're reaching out with the expertise that you have. And, this is sort of an infrequent occurrence where we actually have more really qualified people for a position than we have positions to be filled. but it sounds like you really have something to offer as a volunteer where you could help, help the Council on Aging, you know, help Christine and her aiding, seniors with figuring out how to deal with their, you know, with their interchange with Medicare, or their exchanges with Medicare. So how do you feel about that? If you know, if you're not actually appointed to the Council on Aging, but are you available to, you know, to help Christine, to help the senior center with, you know, with some of their discussion with seniors?
Absolutely. It would give me great pleasure to help anyone, and it doesn't have to be a title being on the council per se. It's the ability of what I can do, and I'm happy to give that to our community.
Great, thanks. Thank you.
That's wonderful, thank you.
You're very welcome.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Hi.
All right, thank you both.
Great.
Thank you,
Appreciate your
Heather.
volunteering.
Thank you, Nancy.
So,
You're
you get
welcome.
sworn in
Bye-bye.
by Jim?
Yep, so I'll email you afterwards, there's a couple things you need to do, ethics training, things like that, it's really simple. But then we'll swear you in before the next meeting.
I just did one for the Board of Library, do I do it again?
No, but I already have that one on file,
Past
that
year.
should be fine, yeah. No, so we can, so I'll just be swearing in before the next Council on Aging meeting, and we can set that up.
Great, thanks, Heather.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, the next item is a review of, this is our ongoing review of committee charges and functions. We're reviewing the Historical Commission. I don't see Bob here, right?
Oh, you know what, I know he's gonna be here, I had told him that ARPA was probably not gonna come up before about 7:30, 7:45.
Okay, should we
so
delay
I
this then?
didn't even make the connection. I
Okay,
I do know he'll be back.
all right, why don't we, if it's all right with the two of you, delay that until Bob is here. Item D, update regarding the MDOT installation of the new overhead sign on Bridge Street. So this was previously approved, and then DOT has been working on it for just about a year, fabricating it. In going out to the site with the DPW highway superintendent, it was determined that the location needed to be changed a little bit. So that's why we requested public comment, or we accepted public comment on this. So we received 3 or 4 emails that were in the packet. Nobody strongly said, yeah, we really want the sign. I mean, it seemed like it was more, we're not sure the sign's enough. You know, maybe there are other things that need to be done. But if there are anybody, if there's anyone online or in the audience who wishes to make a comment, feel free. If you could just identify yourself and your address.
Sure, my name is Kristen Norton, 5 Hill Road. I live just near the bridge. I don't think it's not enough. I think another sign is too much. I think it's overkill. I think it's redundant. It's very similar to what we have existing at the bridge, which is 12.6.
The striker bar, that's the thing that
Striker bar
hangs, yeah.
There too. And truckers know the height of their trucks, and they know that that's lower than the bridge, so they tend to roll under it, and it rolls, you know, along their rigs. I don't understand why we would need another of those. It's also, you know, not to mention the scale, I think is way off. I think maybe Mass DOT is used to higher signs. This thing, not just in its, you know, 5x4 huge, you know, massive post, but even the letters alone. I mean, maybe if we were blending a Cessna or something, it looks like, you know, something you'd have between exits. It's huge, and it's just not to scale for a rural road. And that aside, it seems completely unnecessary. And it's redundant to the other one, but does anyone care to guess how many signs we have? How many?
I'm sure you have a tally, so tell us.
I have it, yeah, I absolutely do. So just leaving my driveway, there's 1. There's 2. There's 3. This isn't, we haven't even left.
team, yeah.
Yeah, this is at Main Street Auto. Look left, we've got Church Street. Go down the road. These are double-sided, so you, at least you know you see it from both directions. Bridge Street, of course. And then there's this cute little one here. It says Bridge Street. Another hint. And there's a bridge coming. This is not going to be a surprise to anyone ever. And the height. This is the library. You know. This is the other side of the Bridge Street sign. There is not a trucker in the world who's going to be surprised that he's about to approach a 12-foot, 6-inch. Oh, and this one I found tonight. I hadn't even noticed it because they're like wallpaper. You know, once you start looking, this one I saw tonight. I'd never noticed it before. Everybody. And then when you get down to the bottom of Bridge Street, Church Street, there are three. They can see each other. 12-6 ahead, drawbridge ahead. 12-6, drawbridge ahead. And then we want this one because these three aren't quite doing it. So my feeling is it's sort of like the cereal aisle. It's totally overwhelming. And the more signs you have, the less you read. I mean, I guarantee I could probably quiz people here. They don't know what these signs say. You do because I just said 12-6, but there are 14 signs existing, and probably 12 of them say 12-6, and many of them say trucks, you know, above this height cannot pass. I mean, there are no surprises. There will be no surprises. The only one would be like a total surprise for anyone who comes down the road like, what the hell, are we approaching a highway? This is insane. This is just ridiculous. I'm sorry. And it's forever. I mean, once it's in, it's in. And, you know, Mass DOT, God love them, they're helping us solve a problem we don't have. And I know it was a year ago, I know we were just off the repair of the bridge. It was traumatic. It was quiet, actually, for a while. But, you know, at that point, maybe there was fear it's gonna happen again. It's not gonna happen again. I mean, if we have a reckless drunk trucker, they're gonna go right through this anyway. It's totally waste.
Okay.
In case I didn't make that clear.
No, that's pretty clear. Anybody else have comments that they want to share? Okay, two of you have any
Yeah, I think I
comments?
heard some.
Rock's Village
Mm-hmm,
does not allow signage like this,
mm-hmm.
and they are going to be coming down the hill to approach that bridge. They're gonna be coming at a faster rate unless the police are there, which is rare. So I don't see why we need it on our side, as if they don't have it on their side.
You don't need it.
All right, Chris, comments?
Always.
All right, bring it on.
I have a comment.
Oh, I'm sorry, I
Sure.
asked if anyone had comments.
Well, I know, I was
Okay.
waiting for you two to stop talking. Anyway, I just wanted to hear if, how can this be determined? Who can make the final, decision on this?
These
I
great
mean,
people
do we
right
have
here.
any
These-
input?
these folks
This
right
is
here.
what we're asking your input right now. This,
Okay.
the select board has already, so this was proposed by DOT, and our prior highway DPW director. And we hesitated about it because we felt that it was very large scale, but you're right, we were fresh off the bridge strike and it was painful for the entire town and area. But as I said, it's been almost a year and, you know, so we are willing to listen to comments, but ultimately it's the select board that decides whether or not to go forward with this. The sign's all fabricated, ready to be installed. So,
Well, I appreciate that because there's a lot of activity there by the bridge, no matter what.
mhm.
And it would be great to, not have this, to have more chaos over
Make a
there.
nice backboard out of it.
Did you have a comment?
Well, I'm just wondering, do they expect 18-wheelers to go River Road?
No, I think the hope is they will back up, which is not ideal,
And
but
then that's where they live.
Yeah.
Imagine that noise when they back up it.
Well, they won't. They don't.
Yeah.
They already know 12-6. They're.
yeah, so that is the, to answer your question, that's the intent, to back up, not to go down River Road, because that's gonna be in the opposite direction of where they wanna go. And, what is your name and address, just for the minutes we,
Claudia Woods, I'm at 3 River Road,
okay,
so I see them back up.
Yep.
And I watch them get very close to my fence.
mhm. And did anybody approach you when?
Can I just ask?
Sure.
So you actually have seen them, so multiple times you've seen trucks back up? Yeah, okay.
Did
I live
any,
next door and I've seen that too.
and
Yeah,
your-
and I've heard
can you
other
s-
people
your
say
name
that,
for the
but
minutes?
Susan Doherty,
Mhm.
9 River Road.
Thank you. So, a year ago when this was proposed, did anybody approach abutters to ask about?
I've never heard about it.
Okay, I mean, it was publicized on the email and all of that, but,
We're all now on the email. Now, right?
Good.
Thanks,
Excellent.
thanks.
Yeah.
We're checked in.
alright, any other comments from the?
Yeah, and have Google Maps and Waze been informed of this bridge restriction?
I think it's already on there.
Is
Yeah.
it?
Yeah.
Because I know at one point it wasn't.
Mhm.
Is that what the driver said when he was in court?
That's,
It's not on my map.
no, I had to go and get a piece of furniture over in Rocks Village because a guy couldn't come across the bridge. But that was a couple of years ago.
But people have come down River Road
Yeah.
and, and Bridge Road, basically, and turn around to get to the bridge and wipe out, mailboxes and things. That's just
Yeah.
the way it's been. I don't see the striker plate changing anything
Okay.
except the scenery.
Wendy, I sent Angus my comments.
Yeah, we've put that, yep.
And I do think the issue of scale, I mean, West Newbury is rural, that's a fairly rural road.
And a
It's
historic
also
bridge.
quite scenic, and to put something of that scale just seems to go against the grain of the town.
We have a question for you. Our bridge, before they paved 113, had a 20-ton rating on it.
Mhm.
Any way to find out why Mass DOT took that off?
That's
If they
great.
put it back on, that limits trucks from going across the bridge.
That's a great question.
Well, if they follow it,
Right,
Yeah.
but if you have the, if they
That
keep,
was,
if
that
they,
was part of the bridge rehabilitation.
yeah, I think when they rebuilt the bridge,
That's,
I thought they were up after that was rehabilitated
No,
the first time.
it is.
That the
They-
low limit signs came down when Brock's paved 113, and they never went back up.
In any regard, when they did the bridge rehabilitation, it was decided then to change the weight limit on the bridge, so it was part and parcel. It wasn't announced ahead of time, it was a unilateral decision by Mass DOT.
Yeah.
But that's what ended up happening.
I
Another thing about signage in general, Mass DOT, they're atrocious at signage. We used to sit at the commission table, just, they're just not good at it. I was more interested in what was proposed in one of the emails about the, alert.
the tap code.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I would just say that Mass DOT is horrible at signage, and perhaps that should be directed towards some sort of alert like that.
yeah, so that was brought up as an idea, back while we were trying to figure out what to do, and, I'm pretty sure that was communicated to Mass DOT, and
I'm sure
they essentially,
didn't listen.
didn't wanna go
So
there.
is there a reason we couldn't do it on our own? I mean, they wouldn't not allow us, they just wouldn't fund it.
I suppose that's correct. I guess where would you actually put the sensors and the warning signaling devices on the bridge or before or off the bridge, before the bridge? Because if you put them on the bridge, then you probably would need Mass DOT's buy-in, because it's their property.
Yeah.
I have a question.
Yeah.
I live at 8 River Road, and I own 4 River Roads. I'm overlooking the bridge. And Kindle Farm is accepting dump trucks that are running constantly, starting at 4:30 in the morning. And they run over full, and they come back over empty, and it goes on all day long. And there's no weight limit. I have
I live on Bridge Street as well, I'm well aware of that, and we're working with the police department, you know, so that's a separate issue from this, but I understand what
But
you're saying.
for a weight
Yeah.
limit, I would think that they're coming across fully laden.
Okay, let's move to the select board comments. Chris, I asked you.
Yeah, I would agree. I think there's plenty of signage down there already, and it's either gonna be effective or not. And the only way I would think this sign would be an addition is if that strike bar were a hard and fast piece of steel
Spikes.
that would take off the top of the truck and give them notice. They're just gonna push under this bar. And I've told the board, I've got video of a truck going down the middle of the bridge and one kid's out on the side directing this way and that way, and they don't care what the signage says. And if the problem is really gonna get solved, you're gonna have a physical deterrent. The signs are what they are. To put another sign is kinda crazy. Second component, if you're putting a sign at the location that they've got it, that doesn't stop anybody coming down River Road, turning into the bridge to the location is kind of absurd in and of itself. So I wouldn't think it's a benefit to add that kind of signage.
Okay, Rick.
I think about the overall cost. If I know the sentiment has been expressed that there'll be no incremental change in behavior based on another sign with a strike bar. I'm not sure I agree with that. And I think the cost, not just dollar cost, but societal cost of having that bridge closed for the period that it was huge. I understand how personal it is to the people who live near the bridge, but you know, I'm trying to take a step back and think about society as a whole, as opposed to, you know, people who represent homes that are near the bridge.
Can I ask how you think it?
Okay, let him finish, please.
And you know, in my mind, the societal cost was huge, of not being able to use that bridge. You know, there are schools on either side of the bridge with students who have to go to them. There are people who depend upon that bridge for getting to work each day, or for taking their kids to childcare, or you name it, you know, for living their lives. And I personally expect that the sign will make some incremental difference in you know, having an early strike bar before you get to the bridge, as opposed to once you're already on the bridge. I think will make some people stop. And yeah, they'll have to back up. I think that's better than going across the bridge and potentially damaging the bridge. I wish that, you know, MassDOT had been receptive to the idea of coming up with a sensing and signaling system before this, but they weren't, and they didn't respond positively. So, you know, I guess, you know, I tend to still believe that another set of suspenders is worthwhile.
So if we were able to pursue the, you know, whatever, the warning and the data collection, if we were able to install that, would you go along with that?
I would have taken that hands down over this to begin with.
Yeah,
But-
so
but
I don't think
just-
it's too late. I mean, one of the emails said we're past that. I don't know that we're past that, if we're willing to take on the cost. To me, I don't think the sign is gonna be effective. I'm also not in favor of having a truck's top ripped off, Chris, even though.
If they get
But-
this far down the road, they deserve it. I'm sorry, there's too many other signs.
But if we have this kind of system installed where they actually take a photo, I mean, that's actionable information, they could get a ticket, I mean, eventually that kind of thing is gonna have impact.
and eventually you'll have a photo of a truck that took out the bridge. Because it's still gonna do it eventually, you know that's coming.
I think a fine is better than, you know, bumping the strike bar as it goes across the bridge. But,
I mean, if you decapitate a truck and it costs them 50
yeah,
grand to fix it versus,
that's not gonna happen.
I see
don't
that
think
as a
we can do-
non-starter. That's a
yeah.
safety issue at that
Yeah.
point. You know, and we can't knowingly create a safety issue.
Yeah.
Cause you don't know, you know, so you knock something off the top of the truck and it lands in front of a car on the windshield of a car that's coming from the other direction. How do you explain that away? You know, you can't purposely set up a dangerous situation.
So as it relates to the sign, it sounds like there's two against the sign, one
Yeah.
for.
So-
Well,
Well-
I would advocate for the sign if the other, if another, you know, a signaling system is not, it cannot be done.
May I just ask a question?
Well, I gave the public the chance to comment, and now we're having board discussion. If there's something new you wanna add, if it's already been said, I don't wanna continue.
I just was wondering how many times the bridge has been damaged. As far as I know, once.
No. It
It's
was,
been
it
closed,
was 3 times in
yeah.
5 years, I think, that it was closed for, probably the
Varying
shortest
amounts of
closure
time.
was only 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Longest closure was several months and, you know, and there is a possibility that one of these closures, that will be it for the bridge. Meaning that the bridge will be deemed non-repairable, you know, short of absent spending millions of dollars. Actually, this last one was millions of dollars, low millions, but it could be more.
But a reckless trucker is gonna go right under that bar. I mean,
So-
that's who's gonna do this.
Angus, you had said in terms of, I mean, DOT went ahead with our instruction and fabricated the sign. You know, what is the cost to the town if we choose not to install it?
They said they would, notwithstanding the fact the board last fall had approved this sign in this location, they said if the current board, as the roadway commissioners, goes in a different direction, they would not be seeking town reimbursement of their costs.
Okay.
They, as you know, strongly recommend
Yeah.
the sign, but they obviously also recognize it's a local road and it's under the select board's authority.
Okay, thank you. All right, are we ready to make a motion? I guess that's no.
well, what's the motion, to either accept or not accept it?
Yeah,
I will make a motion that we request that the state not install this design sign at this location.
second. Any further discussion?
I guess I would like to not close this out as a future possibility. I think we need something more. The sign is something more. It's not ideal. You know, a year ago when we agreed to this, none of us was wild about it, but thought that it was a necessary addition. And you know, I'm just, you know, based on what I've heard, sort of anecdotal comments about other trucks that have gone through since the bridge was reopened. I think we need something more than is there right now, and I'm not ignoring the fact that you know, that people have said they don't believe it'll have any effect, any additional impact. I just don't agree with that. I think it will. Whether it's ultimately sufficient to prevent any, you know, another damaging bridge strike and closure, can't say, but I do expect it to have an incremental effect.
Okay. The one thing I just wanna say is that at the time we made the decision, we were told that the abutters had been notified, and apparently that didn't happen, and so I feel like it's appropriate to revisit this issue, and I would like to see something other than the sign pursued. I think as a board, we could decide to pursue the notification warning system and see what the costs are, and I would prefer to do that than put the sign up. So any further discussion?
And if the answer to that for some reason is no.
I still,
Then-
I don't think the sign is gonna have any impact. I think it's,
And Chris, what's your thought on that?
I think the sign is, if a truck has already made it that far, they're not gonna stop for this sign. I think it's ugly, which if it was solid and could do something, it'd be fine, but the point is, it doesn't do anything. So if you wanna have some electronic signaling, I would be all in favor of exploring that moving forward, because you do need another detriment to stop trucks from going there, but this sign is not the solution, I don't believe.
all right, all in favor of the motion? Aye. All opposed? Rick's opposed. All right.
Aye.
Thank you all for your input, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
Keep your fingers crossed.
Should we go back to the historical commission? or-
Yeah.
Sure.
Thank you.
You're welcome, good night.
Thank you.
So Bob, we had passed over the agenda item for the historical commission questionnaire pending your arrival, and here you are, so
Here it is.
are you ready to talk about that?
I can.
So maybe before we start that, if you could just highlight some of the recent projects, you know, that the commission's worked on, the survey and the town hall repainting.
Okay, and I mean, as you're all aware of, the town hall has been repainted.
But whoever's watching this may not be aware of it, so this is your chance to brag, so.
When they decided to do the painting job on the town hall, one of our members is kind of historic buff and all that kind of stuff, and she's into, you know, this kind of thing. And we did a little research, and found out that was the basic colors that they may have used originally. And we wanted to keep it more in line with what it used to be, or the way it was, so that it, and for the most part, most people think it's a very good idea, they like the color scheme. I thought it was too black when it first started, but then they had the windows painted over and blocked out, so it really looked real black. But now that it's all back to normal, I think it's pretty good.
And that is all complete, right?
That
The
should be
job's
all
closed
complete.
out, yeah, okay.
The other one is the historic site survey we're doing. We're almost done. All the pictures have been taken, we're just waiting for the folks to get everything wrapped up with the state and get done with the final report. I think a lot of you also know we've got the on-site cemetery, so we just had it cleaned up, which was done by a Boy Scout, Kate Dennis and Eagle Scout project. And right now, it has also been ground penetrating radar, so that we know basically history of our town once a month. And, those are quite fascinating too,
Mhm.
the some of the history that she comes up with.
How long do you think she'll be able to continue finding a topic for?
We just replenished the well actually with
Really?
Max kind of digging around in the basement
Nice.
through some of the clerk files. We've gotten, I think, the next 2 years. There's
Wow.
a good amount of.
That's great.
I mean, one thing I've been doing is, this was kind of my own thought, was, when I was taking pictures of the gravestones, the old carvings of this, and kind of what they meant, and did a little research in that, then I get into the different types of stones that are out there. Then I started looking, well, what did this guy do? What did this guy do? We have one guy that went down the Colorado River, through the Grand Canyon. He's buried here in town. There's another gentleman who was at Little Bighorn. He wasn't a participant, but he helped bury the dead.
This is the Quaker, this is the Quaker cemetery? Oh,
This one's on
oh,
the Merrimack Cemetery. I just did a little more research on Ben Fairley Ford. Probably one of the most fascinating men the town has ever produced. So there's quite a bit of history out there that
Yeah.
you really stop and kind of take a look and say, what they did. And it's kind of fascinating to kind of research that. So that's kind of what we've been up to.
Yeah, so I was curious, one of the responses on the questionnaire, let's see if I can find it now, in terms of how the town or select board could help, and one of the things was to maintain the cemeteries that the town owns. So that's just the Quaker, or are there other ones that the town owns?
Well, this brings up a concern that we have.
Mm-hmm.
The Adams House Cemetery and the Quaker Cemetery, I could probably say they're town owned.
Mm-hmm.
But there are about 7 others in town that are on private property. Matter of fact, we just had one on Indian Hill Street. I think there's 7 or 8 graves out there that's on private properties, privately owned. And the owners have just died. And the family wants to sell the property, but there needs to be a way, because they can't just rip out the cemetery, and so there's gotta be it kind of falls to the town or the historic commission to take care of something like that. But then we need a mechanism or something to go on private property and maintain it or clean it up, which is, I've asked Angus if he might check with town council and see what what our legal responsibilities might be, because I think there's at least 4 more out there that are, there's like 4 or 5 graves on them, but they're all on private property, which the historic commission of the town does not really have the right or the authority to go onto the property. And one of the bigger ones we have is on Cranack Hill. There's like 75 buried up there, and again, that's on private property.
you mean down at the bottom, behind Grabowski's house?
Yes.
Down at the bottom, yeah.
Yes.
So I wonder if could be a CPA project, to perhaps purchase an easement, or,
Yeah, I don't know, that would
Yeah.
depend on, like I said, Angus was researching that through town council.
Yeah.
uh,
Okay.
What the rights of the town are,
Mm-hmm. And the
and what the
responsibilities.
responsibilities
Yeah.
of the town are. Because the law says we're responsible for taking care of abandoned cemeteries, but again, I think we need a legal opinion.
Okay.
So I did send over, Bob stopped in, I think it was Monday, to tell me about the specifics of this. And I did send a request over to Tim, the same day I kind of laid out the facts and, asked him what both, responsibilities or, obligations the town had, or whether if it's below the threshold for the town, what notice would a prospective buyer of that land have that
Yeah.
that it's a burial ground. So
Right.
I haven't heard a response back yet, but I expect to hear from Tim soon on that.
Okay.
Yeah,
But-
because this person on Cherokee Hill Road, they came to us, researched some of what has already been done, and we were gonna talk to their attorneys about, when they do put it on the market, obviously the caveat's gotta be in the deed that there is a cemetery there, and so we're kind of hoping that maybe before they do that, we can get some opinion of the rights and responsibilities of the town.
Okay. Do either of you have any comments or questions?
Yeah. Somebody was saying about, any more history, and there's plenty. Back many, many years ago, when I was on planning board, we're in a meeting, and there was, Dick Birkenbush was there in Thurlow, and old Mr. McGrath. There was a large photograph up there that was in terrible condition, and one of them said, "Can we get it restored?" And I said, "We'll look into it." And then all of a sudden, Bert was here too. The four of them started looking at the photo and reminiscing, like down on Whetstone, used to be a sand pit. And they would dig sand by hand and throw it in sleighs to go and throw it on the roads. And off of Crane Neck out in the swamp, there used to be a train caboose, I guess, at a hobo. They called it a hobo, lived out there. And they went on for about 45 minutes with these stories. And I says, "Well, you know, we got the money." I said, "Well, we'll restore the photograph, but the only condition I would like is if somebody could get you guys together in a room with it and do a living history." And to the best of my knowledge, I got off the planning board soon after that. That's not been done. So you still got, got Bob. You've got an awful lot of history in your head, and we still have Bert and Richard Thurlow. So
maybe that's a CAC project.
well, it's somebody's
Chamber
project, but
advisory,
I mean,
yeah.
it was funny to put the photograph in front of them, how they all lit up, and they were bound. They couldn't stop. They were going to different places on it. Remember when this was that, and everything else. And then at the same time, we had that one done and restored. We also got a one from Merrimack Valley planning of that time frame to have the two to compare. So I don't know if they're still in the planning board office. Somebody told me they might be in the basement now, which would be a shame. But
Are you familiar with that?
I'm
Been in the
not, but we
basement.
have a lot of photos downstairs.
but no, these are large.
Yeah, no, we
But
have
so
big
it's
ones.
not posted anywhere in the town office building?
I haven't been around looking. I
Yeah.
just remember there was back like '99 or 2000.
So what was the photo of again?
It was an aerial photo of West Newbury back in the
Okay.
1920s or
Yeah,
30s or whatever.
I have several aerial photos.
And then there's another one that would have been done from about 2000. So the two of them.
Actually, I do recall seeing one at one
You
point.
were
Yeah,
on
there
right
was
as I
one
got
board.
off,
Yeah,
so they were
yeah.
in the office at that point, and there were two very large ones. But Lisa could grab a bunch of these people who are fortunately still here and sit them down, and
Right.
sometimes the interactions. What
Yeah,
somebody said, "Tell me about the history of the town." I go, "I don't know," but then it became so. It was an amazing night to sit there and listen to them talk about it all. And I wish
Well,
somebody-
I think having interaction is also good just because the clarity of memory, if you have multiple people and you're kind of bouncing things around, I think, speaking for myself, we all kind of make up history as we go sometimes, you only remember as much as you remember, but if there's somebody else there who's sort of
been there,
sharing it with you, you probably remember more detail and more accurately.
Between
Yeah.
Bert and Richard Thurlow, you're not going to get that much more living history left
Yeah,
in this
right.
town.
Yeah.
So
So you're not, you're right, you're not.
sit the two of them down with a coffee and a tape recorder or something. Lisa could write for the next 10 years.
All right, I think that is a good project for the cable advisory committee.
They were looking for stuff.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
The thing is, they'll be happy to do it.
Yeah.
Bert will resist at first because he always does, but if you watch it, Bert, just do it.
Any other comments?
No.
I had a question, Bob. I'm wondering about the Historic District Commission or Committee and the Historical Commission. Has there been any talk of like joining or?
We haven't, not at this
Okay.
point. It's been
Do you see any
thought about.
merit to that, or
Right.
do you see any merit to that, to,
I haven't personally given it a lot of thought.
okay,
Not that it wouldn't be a good idea or a bad idea, I just haven't given any thought.
okay, all right, just
I
curious.
guess that there might be some overall benefit to the town for creating a district here or something, or what you could or could not do, or, along that line.
Okay. Angus, did you see anything in here that you want to comment on?
Can I make one?
Yep.
It says staff liaison, it says none. That's me. I haven't went to any
You're
meetings.
not staff.
Well, it says
That says
liaison.
Liaison. she gave us liaison. Anyways, Bob knows that if he needs anything, give me a call. And the other thing, I think you're still looking for another member, correct?
Yes.
Yes,
So just to put that out there, if anybody's listening, you wanna join up with these folks.
Sounds good. All right, thank you. All right, back to the regular. Item E is a request for authorization to pursue an AED program grant. So, any questions from either of you on the materials in the packet?
I think it was pretty well explained in the packet.
Yeah, so this is for the vehicles, correct, Angus?
Yeah, and it's for two, I think
Yeah.
there's the intention for two.
Bill, any
Yeah,
questions?
so
Chris?
I move that we approve the application for the Mass Automated External Defibrillator Equipment Program grant.
Second.
All right, any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Item F is a request to pursue a grant for the My Senior Center touchscreen by the Council on Aging. So Angus or Jim, I know Christine mentioned it last meeting, so it's for them to sign in, or, I mean, what is?
No, this is actually to apply for the grant.
Right, but what
The
is the?
software, yeah, it's basically to get, for tracking of attendance, and, it's intended to help with their financial tracking as well as like how often people are participating, and just to get better data on number of, attendees, what types of events are doing better or worse in terms of attendance. She's tracking, as you know, a lot of,
Yeah.
she's actually tracking a lot of data, but it's in a, Excel format. Prior to her, they weren't tracking any data, so everything she's doing is kind of starting from zero to build out an understanding of the clientele that we serve. And so she's, since this is kind of the industry standard in other, municipal councils on aging to really kind of track things and allow them to do reports to better understand over time how their programs are doing, including financially. That's one thing that Christine is very focused on that I think is new to that position, is she's really interested in which programs are at least break even. And if there are programs that are being basically funded by tax dollars, she wants to make sure that's intentional and not just because of a lack of anyone paying attention to it. So she I know spends a fair amount of time tracking numbers and, both attendance numbers and, fees generated and that kind of thing. And I think this would automate that.
So this is it specifically for seniors to use to log in, or is this for the staff to use for the purposes that you just described?
I think it's I think there's a station that's set up so when people,
Come in, you kind of
come
sign
in, they
in.
will
Okay,
sign in.
all right,
Yeah.
I wasn't
So
clear.
if you attended one of their luncheons, you're not a senior, but you would.
I am a senior.
No, I don't believe it.
I am a senior, but I have a job, so I can't attend the luncheon.
But yeah, so the idea would be, I think you attend, you sign in, if you're a senior or not.
Yeah,
they
and
can
then she
track
has
it.
that data, okay.
So if there's a luncheon that they have and there's somebody who's in their 40s who attends every single time, then they know maybe that's a person they can get in to volunteer or something
Yeah.
like that.
All right, I think it sounds great. Any comments, Chris? I see you have red on your
It's
paper.
just the color, it's orange first. Just be aware that there's an annual fee of $1,500, so that'll have to get worked into the budget too, so. Yeah.
All right.
Make a motion that we accept the Council on Aging's proposal to get this touchscreen.
Second.
All right, further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, item G is a request for use of American Rescue Plan Act funds for water pump replacement by the Board of Water Commissioners. So we have all the quote and everything in the packet. I guess my question to start is why you think ARPA funds are appropriate for this?
well, we just had one pump go down. And it used,
Infrastructure. That's a large piece of
yeah,
infrastructure to the ball field.
yeah, we have a budget or a line item of, unforeseen and said, well, for 20 grand, we threw that pump, to replace that pump or repair that pump. was gone. We have a second pump down there that's probably been operating about as long. And we would like to get that repaired, taken out, cleaned, repaired, so that we don't have any, you know, we don't have another pump that goes down, so.
And so how would you pay for that if ARPA wasn't available?
If it wasn't available, we'd have to wait until the spring to do it out of our operating budget. Take it out of, either the stabilization or whatever, put it in for capital.
So, do you alternate back and forth between the two pumps, or how do you,
Yeah.
yeah. So, like, what kind of duty cycle, like a day on each?
So when the pump's satisfied.
Yeah.
It will automatically
Switch
switch
to
to
the
the next
other,
pump when
yeah.
it starts back
Yeah,
up. So
okay.
when tanks drop,
Yeah, okay,
it turns the next pump on.
okay. So are both pumps running? I mean, is this,
I
So-
have one running right now.
okay, so pump number one is not functioning, period?
It's weak, so we're running the new one to prove it, to make sure that it's running fine. And number one can be used. I explained to Angus the other day, the car now has 500,000 miles on it.
Yeah.
And it's just getting old and tired. It's running, but not reliable. So
Yeah.
we didn't know how unreliable they were until we took that number two pump apart.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. So, you know, the board and I are gonna have a talk about what we're gonna do so that we don't have this come up in the future, working into our budget so that, you know, they get replaced every 5 or 6 years instead of going 12, 14.
That's what I was gonna suggest, cause you got two of them, and it says they go
Right.
roughly every 12.
Right.
If you offset them every 6 and then put that 20 grand into a reserve in your budget, you'd be
Right.
all set, you wouldn't
We're
have
gonna
this
do
issue.
that. We put something in towards our new budget for next year. We're gonna have to figure something in there so that we're not surprised 14 years from now that they need to be replaced again, so.
I wonder if you were to, so they concluded that it was not rebuildable. You know, so I'm wondering if you know, if you had a maintenance cycle every 4 years or every 5 years, if you, I wonder if the dollars would say that made sense or not. You know, it might cost enough, it might cost so much to refurbish a pump, you know, to put in the
Right.
maintenance work, that it didn't make sense and just made sense to run it till it was no longer working well, but.
Run it, run it until its life expectancy's over or whatever, but I mean, I think if we run it for 4 or 5 years and it's sent out to be rebuilt, the replacement cost and rebuild cost, I was told, was about the same right about now, because of the price of everything just being so expensive.
Yeah.
And labor and everything, so. But they should be, even if you run that pump for 5 years, it should either be replaced. I'm seeing the new pump, the electricity rate is down, the pump curve is so much greater on the new pump than
Yeah.
the old pump. I think, you have to be standing right next to it to know it's on. The old pump, you can be in the other room and know it's running. It just, it's an old pump, and you know it's an old.
Are they both on, I think it was a 20 horsepower US motor?
Yep.
Yeah.
And they both have the
And
VFDs.
they both have VFDs, same motor, same VFDs on both of them? Yeah.
So was that part of like a capital plan to replace those pumps?
It hasn't been, but it should be.
That's what we're talking about, getting that on the
Yeah,
capital plan.
it should be.
Alright, and
Yeah,
any,
I think the last time they were taking care of and really rebuilt, I was working here. And that was 12, 13 years ago, I think, so.
Yeah.
The last time they rebuilt.
I mean, is this an emergency situation? I mean, do you alternate pumps on a daily basis? Or if you new pump,
Several times a day.
so you have to have 2 pumps, it's not a main and a spare, it's a,
it could be, I mean,
It-
you're
it could
operating
be,
it
but
by,
they were designed to alternate back and forth.
yeah,
Right.
When this one stops, it is called for, the other one will start.
But the reason for that is to essentially balance wear between them, not because you're afraid of overheating a pump or something like
Right.
that, of working it too hard. Yeah, okay.
That was part of the, if you run one for 6 months and then you run the other one, you're not getting the
Right.
same.
Yeah.
So this way here, you alternate back and forth.
Yeah,
So-
that makes sense.
so it would be a catastrophic failure if the second pump went out, you still have the original for the backup.
yeah, I guess I have a concern philosophically, because half of the ARPA funds have already gone to the water department.
Right.
And, I feel like it's a big ask for something
No,
that's
it's
not.
a big ask, but it also, if something happens a month down the road and I come and I tell you that, hey, it blew up, I need money somehow to pay for a new pump.
But if we didn't have opera funds, you'd have to find a different
Right.
way, so you could ask for,
But that'd be a
Reserve
different
fund
scenario
transfer,
too. If you were
right.
here today saying the pump blew up yesterday,
yeah,
we're gonna do it, but
Right.
it's not a critical emergency, I guess is what,
Yeah, and we knew coming in that it was a long shot, but it can't hurt to ask, you know, I mean.
Yeah, I'd prefer to see, you know, you work with what you have currently, and hopefully it lasts until
spring town meeting.
Yeah, until spring town meeting.
But if it didn't, isn't there an opportunity for a reserve fund transfer? I guess that doesn't work for water.
It's actually not, no, that's just in the general funds.
Yeah, okay,
The extraordinary unforeseen has functioned the same way, but
Yeah.
it's under the, you know,
okay,
I didn't think the ARPA money's gonna be gone tomorrow anyhow, so if I come to you in 3 months or 2 months and say, it finally blew up, we're in dire need of a new pump.
Right,
You
and
know,
if,
at least
if, right,
you three are aware of what's going on.
Yeah.
yeah, no,
And
I
it's no
appreciate that.
surprise, so,
Yeah, and I'm glad to hear you talking about making that part of your capital planning
yeah.
going forward. So is there any PM associated with these pumps, or is it just run it and,
The top end on the electric motor, there's a lot of PM work on it. The
Yeah.
bottom end on the suction side of the pump, there really isn't a lot that you can physically do unless you remove the pump, and that's not.
so it's not like there were things that could have been done to
Right.
prolong the life?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay,
We flush out the well heads every, I think it's 2 years, 3 years. They get cleaned, and it keeps anything from going into the pumps, but other than that, there really isn't a lot you can do with them.
okay. All right, any further questions?
just a comment, and for whatever it's worth. I mean, if you have 2 identical pumps and you know one's going every 6 years, and you can get it onto a cycle where you could do that, I would suggest you do that, and then I would also pick up a replacement set to have on the shelf. It's not a, well,
Yes and no. We have replacement of the motors to run the top half of it. We have spares sitting there. That's something that you can replace relatively easy. They basically have to crane out the well pump part of it out of I think the pit's 14 feet deep.
I think it's 16.
16, yeah, and it comes out in pieces. It was pretty labor intensive.
yeah, I mean, it looks significant in size when I look at the dimensions, but, okay, I always prefer to have spare parts around.
Oh, I would too, but I don't think that's gonna be something that, even if we had the spare parts, we're gonna have to call somebody like Myron to come repair it, because I mean,
That's an easier
What-
situation to
what
deal
kind
with.
of- What kind of lead time was there on the one that you did, replace already? What kind of lead time did you see?
it's 2 or 3 weeks to get them in to come take it apart, and then another 3 or 4 weeks to get the parts in.
Any
So-
warranty on the new one you got?
What's that?
Any warranty? You just replaced the first one?
I think it was a 30 or 90-day one, that was it.
Okay.
But the mode of failure is basically, you know, it's sort of, not contamination, but just buildup of, it looks like, you know, based on the photos, it looks like a lot of it was just buildup of material on the surface, reducing the effectiveness.
Yep, and those
You know, the
veins
pumping
were actually
effectiveness.
worn down, they were,
Yeah.
the newer ones were larger, so
Yeah.
it's like a grinding wheel, after you use it for a little while, it gets
Right,
smaller and
yeah,
smaller.
yeah.
And this is basically, when I say pump, this is just the pump, this isn't the electric drive, it isn't the housing or anything else, so it's basically half of what pumps water. The electric motors are another additional 8 or
Right.
10,000. And those we have it set up so that we can send them out to be repaired or rebuilt. They're about every 3 or 4 years also. We have that figured in on those because those go more frequently than the lower half.
Makes me wonder about my 27-year-old well pump.
Like that.
I'll tell you a story after.
All right, any further discussion? Somebody wanna make a motion?
Yeah, make a motion to not approve the, request for ARPA funds.
All right, second. All in favor?
Aye.
So, Good luck.
Okay?
Yeah, we're hoping it makes it to
We're hoping
spring
to,
town meeting.
yeah,
this
So-
way here, everybody's aware of the situation, and
Yep.
if it goes next week, next month.
And by the way, I heard what you said about the electrical usage, and I understand that, the point of that. Yeah, so I'm sure the new pump is much more efficient.
Yep.
And that noise doesn't speak to efficiency normally.
No, it never is.
Yeah.
So we'll put this into our placeholders for the Springtown
Yep.
meeting.
Yep, sounds good. All right, thank you both.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, Mark, thanks, Bob.
All right, item H, confirm proposed revisions to the regional school agreement. This is for review tomorrow night.
Yep.
So Angus, are you presenting this?
Well, it's,
That would,
I don't know. Justin said he's gonna build our slides into the end, so I'm happy to.
Yeah.
Or a member of the board can, but it's not gonna be Justin. You know, like I said in my memo, you know, when this came up a couple weeks ago, I said we'd be happy to, you know, put our ideas out there since we've been kind of the prime mover on this among the three towns. So the only change from what you've seen a couple of times before is just that break the debt service and capital into two bullets, which I identified at the last meeting. But like I said, you know, 99.9% sure this was great, but I wanted to find out tonight rather than tomorrow night in front of our neighboring towns if there's some issue. So we've got to put it in slide format. I didn't put in any rationale on the slides. It's already quite
Yeah.
wordy.
yeah. And this has already been sent to the other select boards and,
Well, I sent it to Justin, and I copied Carol and Rebecca, and I said, you know, I'm gonna defer to them if
okay,
they,
yeah,
you know, sometimes different boards are different, sometimes they want, you know, they've all seen the January memo, so they
Yeah.
all know what's being proposed. In terms of something new a short time before the meeting, sometimes that ricochets, and that's not the right way to handle it, so that's up to Rebecca and Carol how
okay,
to manage their board and their FinCom.
sure.
But I definitely think we're gonna wanna have, you know, hard copies of our memo so that people can kind of follow along with the presentation and have something to look at.
Yep.
So they don't glaze over it, the slides. And I think that, you know, whomever is presenting, even if the intent of the proposed changes is kind of self-evident, I think, you know, we're gonna wanna have some succinct kind of what's the reason we're proposing this change for each of the slides.
So does either of you have a desire to be
Absolutely not.
presenter? Rick?
I nominate Wendy.
I nominate Angus.
I'm happy to do it.
I would like to have you do it if you don't mind.
Yeah, no, I
Thank
don't
you.
mind at all.
Yeah.
That's
Sorry.
fine, yeah.
I knew I could get you without.
Yeah.
Actually, I have just a really minor point in here, and has nothing to do with the content that we're changing. It's with something that I think ought to be changed.
Oh
And it's
boy,
simply,
no more change.
and it's simply a reference. It's on page 57. It refers to in the town hall of each member town, and for whatever it's worth, from an accuracy standpoint, we probably don't want it posted, the proposed budget to be posted in the town hall.
I mean, technically, I post warrants out there. Nobody ever goes into the
Right,
warrants, so.
yeah. But if we're looking for this to be, you know, publicly viewed,
So how would,
you know, if you think that's too picky, I just wanted to point that out, that's, you know, one of the kinds of confusions we come up with.
so where are you looking?
Right at the top here,
Oh,
the second line, proposed
Yeah.
budget to be posted to town hall.
That's
So,
the library.
so if nobody else thinks it is an issue worth worrying about, then I'm fine, but I just wanted to point that out because it.
Is there a legal component to that, Angus?
No, I think it's you know, it's colloquial use.
It's
I-
understood what it
exactly,
means,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't, it's not a hill to die on.
Yeah, well, no, it's certainly not a hill to die. That's why I just wanted to point it out because it's frequent that, you know, people reference a town hall as
Yeah.
opposed to a town office building. But then on occasion you talk to somebody and they said, yeah, I was gonna go to a meeting at the town hall
Yeah.
and nobody was there. It's like, well, yeah.
So they were all sort of prepped, the other towns on this back in January, they saw the original.
Yeah,
Did they have any resistance? I know there was a question about the elementary school component, but
yeah,
that got
there was a
addressed.
question on that. I think we can expect that to come up. I think that those, I know that came up again over the summer because we had kind of recirculated this just to kind of remind everyone that we hadn't, other than getting a lukewarm feedback last winter, that, the response from both towns, unwritten response was just that it wasn't the right time, and that with the operating budget override on the spring town meeting in the other two towns, they didn't want to distract from that. So over the summer, as part of our monthly meetings, we talked about it a bit more. I reminded them we hadn't really ever gotten a formal response, and that was when we got the concern about the ability to consolidate elementary schools. Once people understood that is an intent to empower that, not to require it. I think that people are fine with that, but I think we'll learn tomorrow. I mean, there might
I'll have
be
to explain
concern
that
about
again.
that,
Any resistance to
And it's a good kind of trial run, because whatever questions the select boards and finance committees have in the other two towns will certainly come up in their town meetings next spring. So if it's a good opportunity to pre-screen the ideas.
Was there any input on the regional finance committee? Because that had been in the agreement at one point and went away, so I'm not
Yeah,
sure
I'd like
why.
to kind of maybe highlight that. I mean, I know there's a slide on it, but, this is page 62, right?
Oh, we just
Yeah.
closed it, but yeah. And at the time that they had it, I thought it was pretty valuable, so I'm not sure why it went away. And so I don't know if there's a resistance to that or not, I don't know.
I guess we'll see.
Wendy,
Yeah,
at the beginning meeting, you said that this meeting is in the auditorium, but the published notice was something about a classroom upstairs next to a media room? Or?
Yeah, I think they
Oh,
did
oh.
actually move the location.
oh, I'm sorry, my apologies.
Yeah, that was something actually Justin just,
Yeah, that was recent. So,
very
So I
recently.
think that's upstairs, second story.
I think it's in the room where we
Okay.
have our school building.
They're gonna put
meetings.
everybody in there?
I don't think they're expecting a lot of people other than the boards and finance committees.
I think that would be
Oh,
very,
the finance committees weren't even mentioned in there. That's
They
what
were
I'm
all
wondering.
invited. They were all invited.
Well, not in the memo, but whatever.
Yeah.
So, to your point, is that
So
kind
is
of
the
a
finance-
small location?
it seems to me to be small, even just for the select boards and finance committees, but, I mean,
The redirector.
I mean, it's open to the
School
public.
administration chose the space, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, okay,
Yeah.
so Justin emailed me Friday. He said, we will be meeting in the upstairs space by the media center, same location as where we hold the building meetings. That will allow for 24 folks to sit easily and for the crowd to see the information on the screens, while also everyone being able to hear what is said. We could use the downstairs dining commons, but sound tends to be an issue.
well, was one of our concerns last
Yeah.
time, so. The crowd? We're expecting a crowd? Yeah. All right. Any other input on this?
So you're gonna make sure,
People isn't gonna take everything.
you're gonna let the FinCom know, Rob, that they,
Yeah, Angus sent.
I've sent
Okay.
multiple
Yeah.
notices to them.
So you don't think that's enough? So this,
Is it just us or is it all three towns?
all three towns. So that's
Select board, FinCom, I mean, we were.
8 for each
seeking more.
town, right?
8 for each town.
I mean,
I know that Justin's assistant has been polling everyone on actual attendance, so maybe, I don't know where he got the 24 number, that might be the number of confirmed
Yeah.
attendees.
No
as
one's polled
opposed
the finance committee, so I'm.
Sure we have.
Oh, you know who's going for the finance committee?
My assistant does, yeah, she's polled you guys, and she's given those numbers to Mary.
So you think 24 is gonna work?
I don't know. I
Yes,
haven't
it will
given
work
it
in
thought.
that
It's not
space.
my meeting.
Yeah.
I'm not hosting the meeting.
No,
Yes.
it just seems like it will be more than 24 people, that's all.
let you know on Wednesday if it works.
Yeah, right.
Tuesday.
That's why I let them know on Wednesday if it works.
Well, aren't you going?
No, if it worked. Past tense at
God.
that point.
All right.
It's easy to have the answer once you've seen the solution.
Okay. All right. Any further discussion on this item? All right, Angus, thank you for volunteering to
Sure.
be the presenter.
It's the first time I saw Wendy sweat, you know.
I can read slides, but I think Angus is a much more effective presenter. Right.
You do a pretty good job.
Item I, preview of upcoming meetings regarding proposed Whittier Tech School Building Project. So the public meeting that was in December has been canceled,
Yes,
correct?
all district meetings.
Yeah.
have been canceled.
But we are still having our previously scheduled meeting with the superintendent next Monday.
Yes, and
At
she
6
did
o'clock.
say in an email to me today that they are adding, or they have added something at Whittier next Thursday. I don't have any details on that, but,
That would be open to the public? Or that would be the
I'm
appointment?
sure it would. She just said,
Community information.
we're setting up a community forum at Whittier next Thursday, that's all.
Well, I'm glad that they're not abandoning the public input effort.
Yeah.
I mean, it makes more sense to have one forum instead of going to each town, but.
Maybe, like that comment, abandoning the public input. They're only looking for public input on the funding, not whether you want the project particularly. I've got a lot of questions on this.
All right, so I think the purpose tonight is to maybe come up with a list of questions that Agnes can communicate it to her so that she's prepared. I mean, it would be good to make the meeting next week, productive. So, what questions do we want to have answered? Why don't you go, because I see you have several.
I'm trying to square everything up in my head because I don't want to go through all the dribble.
I guess what I just feel like we owe it to the superintendent to listen to what she has to say before we, make a decision.
I agree.
Okay.
I mean, I met with Angus today earlier and we decided, let's come up with a list of questions.
Okay, good.
But before you can just throw out questions, I find that an awful lot of the towns have a problem with this in a financial way. I mean, we need VOTEC schools. I mean, without them, as a society, we're screwed. I came up through the trades, and that's what I've done, so I appreciate it even more. But I just find that the budgeting on this is going to be very difficult for most of the towns within the district. So the first question would be, they presented it as you have to take the full nut or the renovation project over 10 years, which will cost more. What other options are there? You can go back to the drawing board. Pentucket had to do that. 20 years ago, we were going to do a school in Merrimack with a grandiose field house and a swimming pool and all that, and that failed dramatically. And so we came back 15 years later and came up with a more reasonable design that the taxpayers could appreciate and afford. So how can they pare this down to a palatable number, both on square footage of the building? I believe it's excessively large, and I'll explain why in a minute, and on the cost per square foot, because those both contribute to the 445 million or whatever it is. I went online and I looked. There is Northeast Metro Tech down in Wakefield. They started October 20 of 22, so a year ago. They're doing a building for 317 million. That's the number, not the state. The state money's come out of that. They're building 268,000 square feet. I think Whittier is at 380-ish. So that's a significant bump right there. The building, the Northeast Metro Tech, can accommodate 1,600 students, whereas the Whittier building will accommodate 1,200. So the square foot per pupil ratio is a huge disconnect, as is there on the square footage pricing. So, I mean, I think somebody's got to go to the state and get 4 or 5 recent projects and compare them. And the one thing that sort of alarmed me, when you go to the Whittier website, their information, this building is being built in the shape of a W, aerial view W. That's not inexpensive to build. Why did you go down that path? I mean, what is the delta building a rectangular box versus a W? It's got to be significant. That's another question. And how did you go down that path? The other issue, and I think from looking at the video online of Georgetown, I sort of sorted it out, was maybe not the right phrasing, but there is a problem with the formula for calculating each of the district towns' monies, because I think it was stated that Haverhill has 68% of the kids, but 42% of the cost.
Or something like that.
Well, none of the other towns are gonna appreciate having to subsidize that. So I think what we have to see is a comprehensive listing of each of the towns in the district, the number of students from those schools attending Whittier, their share of the cost of the building over the 30 years, and just I'll lay the whole thing out with the numbers so you can actually see what everybody is paying and if it's reasonable, because it's not. And I understand why these other towns are choking on it. I think that's where you have to start, and I don't know if the formula could be changed or modified or whatever to be equitable to all parties, because a lot of these towns don't think that it is fair, and I sort of get that. Those are the questions. I mean, I think if you're going to start with those questions,
Yes, unfortunate that this is well.
It's
The
challenging.
the intense public exposure has rolled out very quickly. It has been going on for 7, 8 years. The discussion has been going on for 7 or 8 years, but it was in the background, and it wasn't. When you look at Pentucket, it serves fewer communities, and there's more community involvement, individual community involvement in the school, and people learned about things fairly on an ongoing basis, I think. And I think we need a vocational school, and I think their existing facility is toast. And notwithstanding claims by the one guy at Georgetown about it being them not maintaining it, I suspect that's not true at all. I think they probably maintained it and gotten more than its life.
They've done a nice job on it.
They've gotten more life out of the building than the building was willing to give. But they're serving 11 communities, and it doesn't appear as though Whittier has a real close coupling to most of the communities. Probably does to Haverhill. But it's just the communication didn't happen soon enough, and now we're confronted with this, with a district, regional agreement that doesn't seem to make sense from a financial responsibility standpoint. How it's allocated across different communities, and a school that's about to die apparently, and so it leaves all the communities it leaves the region in a real bind.
it's fairly similar to Pentucket, and the school is at the end of its functioning life.
Right.
And so for the last, those 10 years, 12 years of Pentucket, they were having extraordinary repairs.
Right.
So something would break and flood,
Right.
and then the cost will start spiking. That's exactly what will happen here too. So that won't be a surprise, I don't think, to anybody.
Although, to some extent, in defense of Whittier, this, unless we've received more communication than Raleigh has, we at least have gotten something that we had an inkling that something was going on. It sounds like Raleigh didn't have a clue.
So it's hard to comment on this in a public meeting, because I don't know what I don't know, but there were things that I read in those letters that, I haven't gone back and checked who was on what emails.
We went to a lunch a year ago, and
I believe the same information has been shared to all of my counterparts in the 11 communities.
Yeah.
Where it went from there, I don't know. Whether people accepted invitations to come to meetings, I don't know. In talking with Maureen last Monday, she said that, that particular town administrator hadn't ever come to a meeting. I don't have direct knowledge of that. That's not my business. But I know here in West Newbury, when we've gotten information, we've shared it with the board. That doesn't gets into a packet, maybe it's one of 30 items on a crowded agenda. You know, I don't think that Whittier probably has any real appreciation of how busy towns are every single day. You know, and just it's until you get a real number, you know, I mean, you and I think when we went to that meeting they hosted last winter, I want to guess February, March, somewhere in that range.
Yeah,
somewhere around
I
that.
think it was in December.
Oh, yeah, maybe, yeah, okay, but they had, I think, a rough aggregate number. I don't recall there was a breakout of per town cost, but until we got these, you know, more recently, the real numbers, I don't think people were that focused on it.
Right.
There were a million other things that were gobbling up space, just as there are now, but this has now become one of the bigger ones.
Yeah. Are any other towns in the situation that Pentucket is, that, you know, we just
Oh,
went
yeah.
through this and are building, yeah,
Definitely,
okay.
yeah, I mean, Amesbury for one.
Oh, right,
Yeah.
okay. So, I mean,
Triton's actually looking at building a new high school.
right, right. I would be curious, I mean, maybe this is not directly relevant, but I would like to know what the process is for revising the regional agreement. I mean, we just talked about revising the Pentucket one, you know. Is that a periodic thing that the member towns are asked to review, or?
Yeah, it's funny, I mean, we pay a reasonable amount of attention to our, you know, three town regional agreement, but, I don't know if there's you know, there's written into our agreement every 3 years, we look at it. Is that in the Whittier agreement? I don't know. But it's something that should have been done a few years ago, and definitely needs to be done now.
Well, it should have been done before they started this process.
Right,
That's
right.
the problem. So I suspect they're gonna have to back up, look at the agreement, and then come back and look at a more cost-efficient design. I mean, buildings can be built with different levels of finishes and different accessories that change it significantly. I mean, same with a house, but commercial construction is significantly more money. The Northeast Metro, they're looking about $1,100 a square foot, whereas the Whittier building is a little over $1,300. That's a big number when you're talking 380,000 square feet. So somehow they've got to reduce the number. I mean, if
Wait, what was the other reference, the other bill?
it's Northeast Metro Tech, I just found the
Oh,
story
right,
online
right,
about
okay,
it.
yeah.
You know, if they can, for $317 million, accommodate 1,600 students, we should be able to be looking closer to that number, and then the state reimbursement would reduce it further.
You know, a question I had about that, Chris, when you were using that as a reference earlier, is programmatically, do all the vocational technical schools do the same thing, or
No, they don't.
that's what I.
But that's what I'm saying,
suspect
somebody's gotta go to the
is.
state and say, let's have you 4 or 5 last most similar projects.
But where I was going with this, Chris, is that if, say, you know, there's some focus on machining here, and if you know, if you need, for the program to be effective, if you need $500,000 machining centers, there's $2.5 million for that one program just for hardware. You know, just.
No, automotive,
yeah.
automotive is
Yeah.
gonna cost you multiples more than cosmetology, I understand
Yeah.
that. But there's gotta be, the state's gotta have some data that they can help you with. I mean, maybe it comes back and they say this is the absolute best they can do, that's a selling feature for Whittier at that point, if they can present that. But I think lacking the information, they get some of these questions and they get some very irritated people out there. So.
Angus, I would like to also know, does this, you know, new building, is there changing curriculum with this new building? Are they adding programs that they don't currently have? Because if that is driving the cost in any way, maybe that's something that could be looked at.
I mean, they do have a new, you know, marine maintenance or marine construction, whatever it is, program. But they're doing that in their current space, I
Yeah.
think. But that was new last year.
And that's the question, what are the biggest drivers on the project? can they be in any way modified without diminishing the quality of the programming?
The biggest cost drivers?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm surprised they don't have wastewater treatment, since they have their own wastewater treatment plant. I mean,
They said they did in the video.
No, they have their own plant, but not a program. I think that's
I
what
mean,
I'm
that's,
saying.
yeah, that's like, that field is approaching white death because there's nobody under, 55 entering in.
I was gonna say, especially with like us, Groveland, like right around the area, there's plenty of active systems they could intern in.
Yeah. Okay, any other questions? No. All right.
More questions next week.
Yeah.
Sure.
So Angus had a question regarding, is there a timeline for the project to essentially be voted on and sent back to the state to say, yes, I want to approve? And there's nothing in law that says it has to be done, but the MSBA has a 120-day from their vote.
Which is supposed to be in December.
So from that day, 120 days, they have to hear back from the district on if it's been approved. So that doesn't even fall within our town meeting timeline, the way it's currently set up. So 120 days gets, I think, April-ish. So that, if we did go the other route, if they decided to change course anyway, we'd have to hold a special town meeting.
Okay.
Isn't the vote in January? Rick said December.
The MSBA.
No, I said,
The local vote's gotta be within 120 days after MSBA approves the project, is that what you're saying? Yeah.
And they're.
Okay.
That speaks to one of the questions that other towns were asking, is why not go through the regular election cycle?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
James has answered that.
And their approval comes in December. And so 120 days from that approval. So I actually talked to their council today, she called me back, I was very surprised. So, she gave me a couple other, dates, like when they were invited to apply, which was December of 2019. And 3 months later, COVID hit, so there wasn't exactly a lot of time for them to go to cities and towns and say, hey, look,
Right,
we
yes,
applied for
that's,
this
yeah,
project.
yeah.
So that may have hurt in some of the public,
Yeah, that's a good point. I hadn't thought, yeah, I'm sure that was an issue.
But then I think it was, final design was approved April 2023. And then, I think it was 2021 when the feasibility study was done. So that's kind of their timeline of what happened.
So if the ask is to go back and look at the design, I mean, that just blows the whole thing out of the water.
Yeah.
Okay. Or delays it for a year.
Or more.
Yeah.
Because then if they have to get back in line.
Well, and Chris, you had mentioned a figure that they've expended on the design to date.
It said 1.8 million.
Yikes.
Well, numbers, sort of, I mean, the numbers for the Pentucket School were, it was a big number, to get to the point.
Comparable?
I don't remember exactly what it was, but I'm pretty sure it was over $1 million.
Really?
I think so also, but I don't remember, but yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
It's not cheap to build a school, that's for sure, but I guess there probably are ways you can.
Yeah, but again, just, you say not cheap, I'm happen to be looking at the number, West Newbury share, almost 16 million, 529,000 a year for 30 years for 8, 10 kids. When you do the math,
12, I think it was 12.
I'll do it with 10 because it makes for easy math, so
Yeah.
52,000.
Sure, yeah.
52,000 a kid a year, plus your assessment of another 20. So you're looking at $75,000 a year, every year to educate each one of these kids. Which, my comment would be, you could send them to UMass Lowell for 21 grand. And bank the rest of them. There's a disconnect, huge.
Do you have a copy of the regional agreement?
We do, yeah, I know it was in one of your packets, I have it in for next week, I'll
Okay.
we'll email it around tonight or in the morning,
Okay.
it's in the meeting, actually, it's in the meeting docs for the 11:30
Okay.
meeting. I know I had included it sometime in the last few months when Whittier was on the agenda, I threw it in there. I only had gotten it fairly recently at that time, because I looked around, I didn't find we have it. And
Was that August, Angus? Was it the August?
It might have been. It
Yeah, when
was
she came
some-
in.
Yeah, it was, sometime in the last
Yeah.
4 or 5 months, and I did include it as backup there. We didn't have, we weren't as focused on it, but it is in there for next week, so Jim will email that around.
Okay, great. So what is the overall format of the meeting? Is she gonna have a presentation?
Yeah, she's gonna have a presentation and then a Q&A.
Okay, great. So will you plan to send around an email to invite the public, or?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
All right.
Can we specifically, and maybe I should, but I haven't, I know the next thing is liaison charges. And I believe I'm the Whittier rep guy, who is Chip O'Connor, which I didn't have an email for him, but I do have a phone number, so I'll try and connect with him. But if you have an email of Maureen
Yeah,
does,
I'm sure
to
we do.
specifically invite him, to make sure.
Oh, that's a great idea, yeah.
That's where I got his phone number from.
Something weird happened with my contacts, because there are people that I definitely have a contact for him.
No, I believe it, it just wasn't in your.
Yeah, no, it's not in there, no. But, yeah, something happened with my two iPhones, so my contacts.
Okay. Rob, any input on that?
I think it's really unfortunate that we're at the end, being presented with a finished product.
Yeah.
There's no participation throughout. I think that was a mistake on their part, and it seems like it's causing them some high degree of stress right now.
Yeah.
But I'm anxious to see about it, but it's a puzzlement to me. I do like Chris's observation about whether, there isn't a facility that meets their needs, and maybe it's not so expensive to build.
All right.
Another meaningless statement from, what are you gonna say? I do think we should know the agreement better than we do.
Yep, agreed,
They do have a challenging site.
for sure.
Oh, is it on the site?
No,
I'm saying the physical,
Oh,
the
yeah,
physical
yeah,
site,
yeah, yeah,
the
yeah.
piece of dirt. It's, yeah,
Okay, sorry. It was internet focused.
that's okay.
All right, the next item, J, select board liaison updates. I just had one, Jim, that, the Board of Assessors rolled off the page somehow, it's not listed there.
Oh, I put that in, so I didn't notice that.
No, I don't think it was ever in there originally.
Oh, okay.
I think my document originally, it might have gone on to the next page, so that when I sent it to Jim, it didn't get
Okay,
incorporated, but,
okay.
I will volunteer to be on that because I usually go to their meetings anyway, unless you wanna do it, Rick.
I will say as a
I didn't
general.
realize you were going to the, I have been to a couple before, but not recently,
Not the
obviously.
same ones I went to.
Clearly not.
As
It's been
a
quite a
general
while.
premise, I think that the board liaison role is most valuable where there is no staff person.
Agreed.
So where assessing enjoys, 64 hours a week of staff support, and the communication's a lot better, so I obviously it's great to have a liaison, but I think the biggest gap that fills is for the committees that have little or no staff support to
Yeah.
keep our ear to the ground, so, you can go to all the meetings you want to.
Well,
but
I still think
you
it's a
know.
valuable.
Yeah, no, it's
I mean, it's an
definitely great.
opportunity to
Yeah.
hear.
Yeah, I mean, Wendy, if you, I assume you weren't just kidding, and
No, I
if
was
it
not
helps,
kidding.
huh?
What do you mean?
Oh, you were just kidding?
I was just kidding when I said, Rick, do
Okay.
you wanna do it? Yes, I was kidding about
I was
that.
trying to, okay, I was
All
trying
right.
to be helpful. I do have something for
Okay.
the, energy and sustainability, just a little feedback on where things are on the, solar discussion. So, we had talked about pursuing basically three locations, three of the potential sites. Two of them being at the DPW, the salt shed roof, and then a ground mount system, along the boundary on the eastern end of the DPW site, along the boundary between, the DPW portion and the, you know, conservation restriction portion. And then the third is the roof on the housing authority roof. So Amoresco declined to pursue any of this. It's not big enough for them. We are finding that it's challenging. It's going to be a challenge to find somebody who's interested in doing this as a you know, PPA with a power purchase agreement. You know, if it was something that we wanted to build on our own, I think that would be a totally different situation. But as a PPA, it's I think going to be challenging. So, but we also had this conversation going on with Power Options, who you may recall from a year or more, or probably 2 years ago now, working with their chosen solar installer, a company called Select. We looked at the field behind Page School, and that was for various reasons not ready for prime time, that discussion. So, but we're now back at the same point where we're talking with Power Options directly. Power Options has referred this to Select. That was just last Friday. Haven't heard anything back from Select yet, but you know, that's only one business day really since that referral. You know, presumably we will, and they will be looking at, hopefully, the two sites, the two potential installations on the DPW site, and we'll see where that goes. The roof of the housing authority property, as it turns out, Tracy Watson, you know, who is the director of the housing authority, is already in conversation. I'm not sure what drove her initial contact, but she's already in conversation with a company called Sunwealth, who also works with Power Options, who does their housing authority type properties. So I talked with Tracy this morning, and you know, just gonna help out in the conversation if at all possible. It's hard to say where it's going to go, if it's going to go anywhere, but at least there is somebody who's going to look at the housing authority property. I talked with Tracy about the possibility of combining it with batteries for backup. And you know, if things were to work right, perhaps we could solve a couple of problems in one fell swoop. But you know, we would you know, produce some renewable energy, save dollars, and provide some degree of backup power, which the housing authority would like for their property. That would be an ideal world. I'm not sure we're going to get there.
I was under the impression they wanted to preserve the option of building a second floor.
I think they've moved past that.
Oh, they have.
I didn't ask her that question,
Yeah.
but the fact that she's actually
Sure.
pursuing it, I mean, the reality of it is,
They have no money, so.
well, they have, number one, they have no money, and number two, they have how many residents? And where do those residents go while you're adding another floor? You probably are not gonna be able to live in a place while somebody's building a house above you. And so, I mean, that's the way I look at it. I don't know how you do that. I don't know, you know, and they have, what, 20 or 30 units? I'm not sure.
No, it's like 12.
12, okay, so 12 units.
Yeah, it might be 14, it's no more than that.
Okay, all right, so they have some number of units in the low to mid-teens. But, you know, how do you deal with that? There isn't, like it isn't as though there's a reserve of excess senior housing sitting around waiting for people to move into so that they can put on the second floor. So I just don't see how they were gonna, it's a great idea, I just don't see how they ever get there.
Okay.
So that was it.
Any updates from your boards or committees?
Well, I do the finance committee, so I'll meet with them tomorrow night. That's a joke.
It took me a minute, but.
Cultural Council, Jim, do they have a chair?
They're meeting currently,
Okay.
so
If you get information on that, that's the only blank piece.
their deadline for applications was on the 16th, so they're meeting tonight to decide on who's getting the money. But their first item was selecting a chair, so.
Okay, good. Because I haven't connected with, don't know.
If you see Max wandering around, they will have ended their
Oh, that was why Max was here.
No, he's just hanging out.
Oh, okay. I figured he had more going on.
I had scheduled their meeting before we set our schedule.
Yeah.
And it all fell on one day, so.
Yeah.
So an update on the Open Space Committee and Conservation Commission, which you are the liaison, but, so we're working on a trails document. So if somebody wants to put a trail on either town property or an easement, this would be like a standard set of procedures. So that's been drafted by the conservation agent, and there was a working group that reviewed it, and now it's being reviewed by the Open Space Committee. So hopefully once that's finalized, then we'll invite interested parties like the Mill Pond Committee, Essex County Greenbelt, EFTA, and come up with a standard document that the town can use to prevent the kinds of situations we have now, where we have these orphan trails that nobody's responsible for or not properly documented. So that's the extent of my update.
Okay, yeah, there was a little pushback, I know, from the open space initially, so is that?
From 2 members,
Yeah, okay,
the rest were in favor.
okay,
So change is hard,
okay.
but good. All right, meeting minutes. Any,
First page, question.
yeah,
Was Larry Cochran here? Didn't see him. Listed him as in attendance, and
No. He was not. There, February 16th meeting, Larry Cochran was not.
yeah.
I'm sure I didn't see him. I'm not sure if he was
wasn't
here.
It was not, okay.
I'm positive I didn't see him, like I said.
Okay, okay.
He may have been here.
All right, second page, any questions or comments?
Yeah.
Yeah,
B. The sentence Parker motioned is repeated twice. I don't know why.
Maybe you really liked it.
Huh? Really liked it?
Read it.
Double trouble. That. Next one I have is under D. Says the DPW had already acquiesced to the work. The National Grid, hang on, the planning board and DPW had already acquiesced to the work. They hadn't acquiesced, they had approved it. That's editorializing at its worst.
well, actually, acquiesce, I think it means.
It's to give in.
But no, it means to approve without protest.
Yeah, that's giving in. They approved it. If he did showed up at the meeting and go, yeah, whatever, you got it, that'd be acquiescing. But they didn't. They made a presentation, they listened. So,
All right, so you just want to change the word to approved.
yeah,
Fine.
just because it was.
Okay.
I don't think I can spell acquiesce off the top of my head, so I think that's impressive in general.
Yeah.
I had also in D, Parker asked if National Grid was pursuing underground utility lines. Butler said that most lines were underground. I think what he said was that in subdivisions,
Yeah.
lines were typically underground, but that, I don't know if he said it explicitly, but he sort of implied that, National Grid is not doing it for, general.
That was the sense I had also.
Yeah.
Which is kind of what I expected, but figured it was worth asking. If they thought about it, or where their thoughts were, so.
Under E, which was the presentation of the page school conditions, it's not what's in there, it's what's missing. I think there should be some note that they did discussion of the costs and the options, and they said, $250,000 to $500,000 a year would get us another 20 years life out of the building. Because that to me was a takeaway that I took as rather encouraging. We're not at a catastrophic point, but that's not in there.
So where would you put that?
In E somewhere.
Okay.
So-
Can we be more
so-
specific
So,
to help Max?
if I can make just, so discussion was also about costs of rehabbing the building to extend its life for 20 years, something like that.
Maintaining the building
Maintain.
with costs in the range of $250,000 to $500,000 per year. You should be able to get 20 years life out of it.
Do you see where that should go, Jim? Or do you want us to?
I'll figure it out.
All right.
I may not have the dollar figure, but I'll add options for discussion. discussed extensions.
Well, you want the dollar figure,
Yeah.
right?
You want the dollar
Yeah,
figure there
we'll get it.
specifically?
Okay,
Yeah, he does.
Okay.
It was in the slides that they presented, so that's.
I was just trying to guide where it should go to make it
Yeah,
easier,
yeah,
but,
right.
yeah.
So,
Anywhere there,
also in E, on the fifth line down, there's like a missing tail on a sentence. It says that the GNAP representative warned that renovations to the school would trigger substantial modifications to be up to code at the same. At the same what?
I think you can just delete it at the same.
Yeah.
Got it.
Okay, anything else in E?
Yeah, did he, farther down it says the firm's wiring inspector, the guy was an electrical engineer, did he refer to him as their wiring inspector, or, I wonder, or?
If he's an electrical engineer, he might take offense at that.
Right, maybe not, maybe he's the, yeah, I actually had talked with him because he'd been looking for information on lighting, so we had a conversation, I, emailed him stuff, so.
Conversation was illuminating.
So, yeah,
Oh,
right, there you go. It led all sorts of places.
All right,
That was-
so,
So,
you just, how do you wanna change it? Let's be specific, so.
yeah,
we-
yeah, so I would change that wiring inspector to electrical engineer,
Okay.
unless for some reason there's something, Max comes back and says, no, this is what it actually says.
I think that was just his interpretation.
Okay.
All right, what about item F, or anything on page 3?
Oh.
All right, Chris, you good?
Move on to the last page?
Yep.
Okay.
What do you have on the last page?
Under X. Did you say, it said there, in the process was not past the point of no return and the installation of a new sign was no longer necessary? I'm not sure you said that.
I didn't.
So, okay. And then the next sentence following, it says, the room then discussed trucks. The room doesn't discuss anything. Again, the people in the room, or the conversation continued, but
The crowd.
whatever. The room was pretty quiet.
Sorry, what was the edit for Wendy?
So just say, if the process was not past the point of no return, that the installation of the new sign should be, evaluated, considered, something like
Further
that.
discussed.
Yeah. Okay, anything else? Okay, motion to approve, is amended,
Make a motion to approve the minutes as amended.
all right, all in favor?
Aye.
All right. Move on to town manager updates. Item L, capital improvement program.
Item L, when we posted the agenda on Thursday, I didn't know if I might have, this ready to present tonight. I don't, with the way things have gone, maybe other things, but, I did want to include it on the agenda just as an update as to where we are. I've got basically capital updates from all town departments, the two that are, and I received them from Page School as well. I haven't had time to build their updates into the capital workbook. So that's something that's gonna still take some time. And then the second item that's definitely gonna take still some time is on the water side. The main reason being that someone, I don't think it should be me, but if it has to be, that's how it's gonna go. But someone's gotta reconcile the kind of what I take to be a fairly comprehensive list of future water main replacements that the water department submitted over the last several years as part of the capital planning process. You all have seen it, the color-coded kind of matrix that's got like the 4 different phases, and it's got roughly 22 different individual projects listed. Someone has to basically reconcile that with the much shorter list of projects that's in the hydraulic study that Tate and Howard produced, which is still in a draft form. We received the draft over the summer. They're working to build in some comments that we received, or that we submitted toward the end of August, but for reasons receive until last week. So basically that's, getting to where the water capital plan is something that we all have confidence in, is something that is, at this point kind of on my desk, because I don't think the vendor has really delivered what we expected in terms of a capital plan. I wanna wait and see what we get for their updated draft. But anyhow, the water side is definitely, gonna take some more time. So I will have the overall capital program to present at the next meeting, 2 weeks from tonight. I would say at this, as of like a couple of weeks ago, I think we were further ahead than we've probably ever been at this stage of the process. But there have been a number of things that have come up the last couple of weeks that have really gobbled up a lot of time, and there just has not been the time to finish it. But those two items are really the two that I'm most focused on that still need some work to really get it done, is the Page School and the water.
And so are there any options other than you having to do the water?
Well, I think in my comments to Tate and Howard, I was extremely clear and including attached to my comments what they have submitted, and I said our objective is to understand, are some of is the fact that the Tate and Howard list is much shorter because they have aggregated things that maybe Mike Goutet was showing as different projects, and maybe they've integrated it as a single project. Is it something like that, or is it that Mike Goutet's list was intended to be, 20 plus years, and maybe they were thinking of a 7 to 10 year? I don't know, and so someone's got to figure that out.
Yeah.
And again, I can do it. It just ends up being on my desk, and therefore a
it doesn't
bandwidth
seem
issue.
like-
Meaning, and it's frustrating because, as you know, I put in a lot of time on comments to that hydraulic plan. Many hours of time writing them up, meeting with Bob and Mark, making sure they were in agreement. I circulated to this board, I think everyone was in agreement. Then I typed up my comments in detail, included exhibits. I sent them a ton of information on August 28th, and learned last week that I guess their email system was down for part of the day on August 28th, and they never received what I got, and never told me they hadn't received it. So I resent it last week, so they're, I guess, working on that. It's very frustrating.
Yeah, I
because
bet.
I feel like we were very, we spent a lot of time in the spring of 2022 on the scope for that contract to get what we wanted. And here we are 18 months later, and it's like, it's very frustrating because we'll wait and see when we get the updated draft, but we got that draft, July? Water Commission got it in March. We didn't see it for a couple of months after that. And I just don't think it's gonna give us what we've been looking for, and I think that's gonna put it back on us to take, basically, like I said, to reconcile this list that, Mike had circulated over the years with what we get from Tate and Howard, and try to get something that's complete.
Did they give you any indication when it would be done? When you're
I thought they'd been working on it for the last couple of months.
I know, but given that it's-
No, I didn't, it was actually a week ago today that Mark Marlowe mentioned that they, I guess, had mentioned it, that they hadn't gotten the comments, and so he gave them my handwritten comments, and I said, well, that was like a draft.
Right.
The typewritten comments were much more detailed, and so I re-forwarded that, and, they confirmed that they got it, but no, I don't have a timeline. I know that they submitted an invoice for their final project invoice for the project.
I hope we didn't pay it.
No, we didn't pay it, but it came down to my office with the appropriate approvals. I pulled the check out of the warrant because the project's not done. So anyway, the water is, and then, we heard earlier tonight, there's things obviously, in the list that they haven't accounted for. I know they haven't considered them capital, or they just haven't been thinking in that way, but I still, it's very clear that, getting to anything approaching kind of a comprehensive capital list for water it's been very labor intensive. And it's not something I have any expertise in whatsoever, so it's like, that's why I say I shouldn't be doing it. I'm not the one who has any knowledge of running a water system.
Yeah.
So, but if it's not getting done by the Water Commission, it's not getting done by the consultant, there's not a lot of options, so.
Well, is it an option to just take what they give us, even though we know it's not accurate? I mean, I don't wanna see you doing the work that the water department's paying the consultant for.
Well, but we're also, as you know, we're looking at the end of the calendar year, looking to have a comprehensive water financial plan. So this hydraulic study has always been viewed as probably the central ingredient of that, with the secondary ingredient being the rate study, and that didn't meet our expectations either. So it's like, I don't know that we're much better off than we were before that rate study was done. I don't feel that added anything to our understanding of what's going on with water. I feel like it's just back on our desk to figure it out, so, which we're capable of, it's just an issue of time. This hasn't been the time, and there's not, and we'll get to that in the next one, but I mean, I look at my calendar in the next 10 weeks, and there is no time, like, to even, it's gonna be very, very difficult, as it has been. Hasn't been a day that's not been difficult.
Does it's almost a rhetorical question, but does the Board of Water Commissioners, you think, fully understand yet how?
No, I don't think so.
Yeah.
Are they capable of
Have
understanding?
there been any productive one-on-one conversations?
Only in that, it's a little difficult because it's obviously it's a, 3-member board, really effectively a 2-member board. Bob's at the table for some things, Jack's at the table for other things. I've had good conversations with Bob, I've had good conversations with Jack, but in terms of as a board, they operate as a board. I mean, you're at, one or the other, I think each of the three of you have been at some water commission meetings. It's, it doesn't, I think there was that one meeting a couple of months ago that I think Rob was at, that was, I think, the far and away the best, most substantive water commission meeting I've ever been at. But I think the level of engagement that the level of clarity that we are trying to provide isn't something that they seem to be striving for. It's almost like we're just aiming at a different target. It's like what we're focused on just doesn't seem to be a real focus of the commission as a whole. And they've had their hands full with different issues and operational issues, and that takes a fair amount of the staff time. But it doesn't seem that they're I don't know what I don't see anyone like meeting me halfway.
Yeah.
on this.
Yeah. Yeah, I
So
agree.
any options, can you think of anything that we could do to try to reorient this? I mean, I don't want this to continue because it's not a good use of Angus's time.
Well, I think the capital program's kind of on me, which
Right.
is fine.
But the base data you need to do that is what we're missing.
Yeah, I think what I had sent to Tate and Howard, along with attaching Mike's spreadsheet, and I said really clearly, this is, I'm trying to reconcile these two things. I'm frustrated because I sent that out in August, knowing that I was trying to get my capital program done by early November. So you can imagine my frustration when I learned a week ago that they hadn't gotten those comments.
Yep.
Because it's like, okay, I guess help isn't on the way because they didn't even get my comments till last Monday. Even though when I talked with them in the summer, I said, I'm gonna send you comments, and I just can't even believe no one ever picked up the phone and said, hey, you said you were gonna send us comments, it's been 2 months.
Yeah.
They did never do that. I mean, they've been here in the building, I don't know, it was a real setback, so I don't know how quickly they're gonna turn that around.
And whether it's gonna
when
meet
they
your.
do, I don't know if I have by the way, the amount that's been paid, I told you we held back the last invoice, it was for less than $1,000. So they've been paid for, 95% or 98% of the job has already been paid.
And what was the original contract?
It was around, 72,000, that included for the rate study. And all but, $850 has already been paid.
Yeah.
So there's just not the, like, invoices are being sent down with, we got a proposal 2 weeks ago for construction administration services for Church and Prospect for, between 84 and 124. And I said to Mark, like, we
84
haven't-
and 124,000?
for construction administration for Church and Prospect.
Okay.
Yeah, which is, it's gonna cost a lot for a
Yeah.
$3 million project, but the point is, for that to come in, when as of that time, we haven't received the amendment 3 to finish the bidding and
Right.
getting someone under contract, was very much cart before the horse. The first scope item in the construction administration contract was the pre-construction meeting with the selected contractor. We haven't finalized terms to get the project put out to bid, to get a contractor hired. Never mind figured out, like, even though we can pay against borrowing authorization, that's not a conversation we've had. We're not expecting to start expending 6 figures of money until, early spring. Like, we got a lot of work to do to borrow the money, it takes a lot of time. In my office, it doesn't take that many time, but it just was so tone deaf. Like, we've been waiting since the meeting we had on October 18th. I think it was October 18th, to get the amendment 3 confirmed, since this board had voted to authorize up to 9,000 for our vote to get the bidding completed. We've been waiting to get the amendment 3, and that came in via email last Thursday, just two business days ago. But 2 weeks prior to that, I got a proposal, or Mark got a proposal and shared it with me. And thank you, Mark, for sharing stuff, which he is doing, which is great. But he brought me the proposal for the construction administration. I said, Mark, why are they sending this? Like, we're not even clear on getting this thing put out to bid and getting a contract awarded. It's just.
I'm sorry, who sent you that?
Kate and Howard.
And was there any procurement process followed for?
No.
This is a big problem.
Yeah.
Which would,
Technically for engineering,
Yeah, it's exempt. Yeah, you don't
it's
have
exempt,
to,
but
But
it's
still.
not a bad
Yeah.
thing to do, yeah.
And,
right,
we just signed a contract, or the Water Commission did just in the last 2 weeks for the lead and copper survey, which is a $75,000 work item over the next, 8 or 9 months. It's just enormous amounts of money are going to that firm. And, but in terms of the work product that really we've been counting on, I don't think it met, our expectations for it.
Yeah.
and we don't have any recourse because it's their budget and,
It's
okay.
their budget, yeah.
So, it looks like, I'm just seeing whose term is up. I mean, do you think somebody new on the board would be helpful?
I don't get into that.
That's also a long ways off.
Well, all right, well, this is a separate conversation, I guess.
Yeah,
Do
it
you have
is.
any input?
Yeah,
I'm really frustrated with the continued dollars going to a firm that's not meeting our
yeah,
expectations.
I agree with that.
Yeah,
I just don't know
like what the options are.
from our position.
This might not be the forum to discuss it either. I think you might not be the place.
All right. Well, it is the place because it's putting work on the town manager and he has other things he should be working on.
Well,
so,
and it's also the place because it is public business.
yeah. Okay, we'll have to,
Yeah. So, what I'll do is I'll work with what I've got but it's, the capital program that we have that I'm updating is based on the spreadsheet that we've received over the last several years with either 22 or 24 different projects. And by the way, it was me and Wayne who put those into that format. We just got the spreadsheet from Mike, put it into the format so it was in a consistent format with everything else.
How comfortable are you with, what you got from Mike?
Well, I think it's accurate in terms of the lengths of the things, and it's accurate in terms of it's the per linear foot cost would be a bit dated.
Yeah, right, but generally.
Orders of magnitude, yeah, no, it's.
Mike did usually, he knew what he was talking about.
Yeah, no, it's accurate in terms of, like it's the lengths of the pipe, the diameters, whether they were replaced or clean in line. Yeah, it's orders of magnitude reasonably accurate, but given that what we're looking to do this cycle isn't just
Yeah.
an update, it's the overall financial plan.
But if you had to start someplace,
That would be a better
it would
place
be
to
really
start.
start with Mike and then work back to Taylor and Howard, who I would have some concern over
yeah.
the way they've been performing. Could I just ask maybe that, I don't know, Wendy, Angus and I maybe just sit and go over this? Because we have an interest in it too, obviously,
We mean the finance committee?
the three of us.
Okay, all right.
The three of us just sit down and rehash this out, because, it would be interesting to see what might be available, what is needed. Certainly, one of the two biggest things we're facing right now.
Yeah.
Well, actually, now there's three, but Page, Water, and Whittier. This thing is more in our control in some ways, but obviously,
There's a lot of stuff in play.
yeah, there's a lot of stuff in play.
So regarding what you do have from Tata, or what was received from Tata and Howard,
Yeah.
and trying to sort of justify it against what Mike had, is there, it sounds like it would be foolish to think that we'd be able to, that say, I or somebody else could pick that apart.
I think someone could, if they had a couple of hours, that's really all, that would at least allow you to ask some informed questions, because some of them might be obvious, it might just be different terminology or, but also, there's a lack of specificity in the Tate and Howard, they list, I think, like 7 capital items.
Yeah, and I know you were saying they might be combining multiples too.
Yeah, so I think it's something that could be, it's a reconciliation issue. It's trying to figure out, is this, and.
Yeah.
It's not.
I'll take a look at it, but I make no guarantee that I can make sense of it.
Specialized knowledge, it's just a matter of time and working through it, and then sending the questions to either, Tate and Howard or to Mark, just to make sure that what I'm representing in the capital program is accurately, depicting what's in there. It's just, I would have expected something that kind of takes what we have and modifies it instead of something that's.
Instead of obscuring it.
Yeah, it does. It obscures it. That's.
So is it an option to just use what we had from Mike for this year, knowing that?
And just get some updated per linear foot. I think it could be an option. Yeah, I think it would be an option. That wouldn't be difficult at all, because it's all in there.
Yeah.
It's all in the capital program.
Then you're not waiting on them.
Right.
And then, I don't know what we. All right. So item M.
So item M, what I wanted to do is just, I put together a list of basically what's on my plate between now and the end of the calendar year. And I did type this up, so I'll hand it around. I wrote remainder of 24, I actually meant to say remainder of 2023, because this is the calendar year, this isn't to do with the fiscal year. And it's really just to share with the board what's already on the table, these things and nothing else, it's going to be very, very difficult. And so I just wanted to, so I'll just run through them. Finalize and close out the FY23 audit is all but done, but it's not done. It's the financials are done. The management letter, we've been in touch with Tony in the last week. Jenny and I are going to get him our comments on the draft management letter by the end of tomorrow. My guess is we'll have the complete total done by the end of the week. And he has confirmed he's available for the 20th. So we'll have the audit presented 2 weeks from tonight. That's going to be great. Obviously, the project fairs and forums are going to be very, very positive. We're very excited about that, but they're also obviously taking work. Those are near-term things, but certainly for the next, 9 days, those will be a focus. Update and circulate the capital improvement program, initiate the CIC process. The next one, this is new to probably some of you, but not new to Wendy. I have been working to line up management training for targeted employees. This is with Mark Way, the consultant that we had gotten a quote on to do a board facilitated process. This has actually been in the works since the summer, but we have reached agreement on that. I think that's going to be really, really good, but it will take time. I think it's going to be absolutely worth it, but it's a 6-week, 2-hour-a-week course for myself and 9 employees. So that's something that's going to start in about 2 weeks and go till early January. The next one.
Can I ask a question on that?
Yeah, of course.
Is Wendy gonna be one of those 9?
No, it's for staff.
Okay, was Mr. Fayou gonna try and bring in to help with the meetings and everything?
Yeah, that would be a separate.
Yeah, that's a separate proposal that he gave. We haven't formally moved forward on, really primarily because I'm kind of reaching my peak on number of meetings.
Yeah.
And so I've just been hesitant to pencil in another.
So is it realistic to think we could do that in January, or are you gonna be too
I
hot
think
into
we
the
could do it in
budget?
December. It's just a matter of, right now, I just need to get through the next like
Sure.
10 days because there's just, it's been, I mean, but that's, yeah, I would probably rather do it December than January,
Yeah.
just because January
Budget,
is
yeah.
very difficult.
Okay.
With the budget things. The ClearGov, again, this is really positive, but this is many, many hours of trainings that me and Jenny need to do. And then we gotta get all the department heads trained, which I think isn't gonna be difficult, but we have to set it up properly to make it easy for everybody else to key in their sections of the budget. So it's very good, it's very positive. We've had 2 trainings, we've got another one next Monday, but this is something that just bear in mind, this is something me and Jenny are learning a new budgeting software and a new capital planning software. And I think it's gonna pay off when we get to January, February, March, but we gotta make that front end investment, which we are. The FY24 budget, we've got penciled in for December 4th is the budget policy direction. Then I put together the packet that goes to all the department heads and board and commission committee chairs. I prepare probably more than 50% of the budget in terms of sections, so that's also, it's not just gathering other sections, it's me and really primarily Jenny, it takes us a lot of time to put together our sections of the budget, so that's something that is all going on in parallel. Retooling the DPW budget, we've done some work on that, but that's gonna take many more hours of work to really formalize this structure to really where buildings and grounds and highway and kind of business administration are clearly budgeted so that there's not like, jockeying for like, if just for example, an easy example is travel and training. If you had a single line for travel and training without clarity going into the fiscal year of which divisions have what budget, that's gonna end up being like, oh, I wanna go to this conference, oh, I wanna go to that conference, and then I end up having to mediate that, which is not the idea. The idea is to get it clear in the budget so everyone knows going into the budget year what's budgeted for their travel and training. That's one example, but So that's something that, you know, we did some good work on that back in August, September, but it's kind of in my inbox and I haven't had time to really process the work that support staff have done. The summer rec program, that's something that hopefully won't take a whole lot of time, but it could, and it's already taken more time than one might expect. But that should play out in the next 2 to 3 weeks. Middle Street Bridge financial plan, obviously we got the grant, but there's, you know, there's a huge delta. And so that involves, you know, really being engaged with Newburyport, trying to get a new MOU. The water financial plan, I referenced that. Some kind of MOU with Newburyport, you know, the town meeting article said the end of the calendar year. That's obviously not gonna happen with an executed agreement, but I think, you know, it's incumbent on us to have at least a framework that we can talk about. We've made some headway, but there's a lot of work ahead. The Sawmill Brook property, we've got a closing deadline of December 15th. I think we're in good shape with that, but that is something that's taking some time on a current basis, just to make sure that we're, you know, having the land grant fully approved so we can expend the funds and just make sure all the money is ready when it needs to be ready.
So you just, the land grant, we talked about that earlier, but
Yeah.
Chris and Wendy.
Yeah,
both-
we actually haven't,
Yeah.
so Chris, I don't know if you're aware, we got the land grant. $1 million. That was it $1 million? No, it was like it was like, what, 450 something?
Yeah, it was under $500,000. I don't
Yeah,
remember
it
the
was,
number
yeah.
exactly.
But we got that. The information's embargoed, that's why we haven't done like an announcement on it. But I called the grant administrator this morning, I said, we have a December 15th closing. Like, we can't continue to sit on this information, we have to get this grant executed, which requires Concom signatures. We hadn't told Concom until today, because we've been told the information was embargoed. So Jenny and I called the state this morning, said we really need to get this grant executed, and she said, don't worry about it, just go forward. So that's what we're doing. But yeah, just getting, you know, we got the signatures, we got those sent over today. We should have an executed contract within 2 to 3 weeks, at which point we can expend funds. But it's not a huge thing, but
It's a thing.
it's a thing,
Yeah.
and it's an important thing
Yeah.
with a lot at stake.
Right.
And, you know, just in the last 3 weeks, I've probably had, I don't know, a half dozen calls and 8 or 10 emails with Vanessa, plus working with us. You know, it's not like one thing, it's a lot. It takes time to do all this stuff.
So this means that less money will come out of the CPA funds,
Yes.
right?
Yeah. ARPA plan, we've been talking about that. We have all that information, it's just putting it in whatever format you guys want, and I think doing the best we can on forecasting future needs. And that's gonna dovetail nicely with the capital program, because, you know, I think those one-time expenses are gonna be the best uses of ARPA funds. But as you know, there's things we're learning about all the time, whether that's the Coffin Street culverts and the estimated cost for engineering and permitting for those, or the Page School HVAC, which, you know, we'll have that on two weeks from tonight, by which point we'll have a firm number, but that cost is likely to significantly exceed what's been appropriated for ARPA. So those are two kind of pretty big moving parts on potential ARPA funding. Page conditions assessment, that's, you know, intended to be wrapped up right around the end of the calendar year. This GIS mobile app is a really great thing. Rick sat in on one of the meetings. I mean, it's really, really good, but there's no one on staff who's trained on it. So when we signed the contract with MEPC a month ago to renew our annual license for this, we specifically wanted to get staff trained, you know. Butch, Sue, Michelle, myself, Paul, Christine Wallace, you know, so we have a training coming up. And it's, you know, 2 hours, but it's on the calendar. The goal setting session with the board, setting the tax rate, that's mostly done, but, you know, that'll be 2 weeks from tonight also, is the tax classification hearing. Personnel evals, this is a huge one, huge time implications of this. And I've been making a ton of progress. I mean, Rebecca and I really track, but it's a lot of work. Establishing the process and timeline, we have 12 different supervising staff. Most of those supervise one person, but that means getting each of those people like with the same, process and timeline, and then 4 boards who supervise. So it's, as I've been saying all along, it's not just me evaluating the people I oversee, it's getting everyone in the whole organization to do it on a consistent timing and a consistent method. And that's, I came up with, 6 or 7 questions today. I spent, probably 2 hours on that this morning. And, I just come up with questions that I need to get answers before. So it's a big deal. But conducting the evals and overseeing and ensure others conduct their evals, that's an enormous thing that there's a lot of expectation that gets done really before we begin the budget process. So that's like the end of this calendar year. There's still, dozens of job descriptions that are in draft form from a year ago. So that's the next one. These policy development things, those probably won't happen, but they've been on the list for a long, long time. We have working drafts. In some cases, we have like 98% drafts. They're not done until they're done, and that often ends up on my desk. I'm often the last person to review it. We're gonna have police and dispatch union contracts. Our goal going back to the summer has been to try to get ahead of that and like go into the process with our own well-formulated ideas for both of those. And we've got Tim, scheduled for 2 weeks from tonight to give his feedback. But, it's already November, the idea of getting ahead of that is like waning. And I'm concerned that, we'll have another cycle of not having bargained contracts when we're doing the budget, which means we gotta carry contingency and, it just creates more headache. And, but that's something like so many other things, it's only gonna happen on our timeline if I push it. And I can't push it unless I have time to push it and to focus on it. This item 21, Michelle and I have got a whole list of open items with Greenbelt, and, I corresponded with Dave Rimmer, at this point 5 or 6 weeks ago, and we were working to schedule a meeting, and then, it didn't happen. I got too busy, so Michelle sent me some good notes, but it's just been on my desk for a while. But we want to get to where we make sure Greenbelt knows all the open items, and I don't need to reiterate them now, but there's a lot of them. The Ash Tree Management Plan, that's due, I think, the end of January. I'm going to a 2-day conference next week, Mass Municipal Management Association, so that's two days out of the office. And I still have to use over a week and a half of vacation between now and the end of December, or I will lose it. So this is why I'm stressed. And this is not the 103 emails that I either read or send daily. That's a consistent number. I ran the report again this morning. That's the last 90 days. That is the actual number. It is amazingly consistent over the last 5 years. The daily, I could print out my calendar, and you'd see that going into a work week, I probably have, 18 or 20 hours of daytime meetings scheduled, not these evening meetings. There is no time. It's the same as it's ever been, but I felt coming into tonight's meeting on November 6th, I need to let you know that for me to even survive the next 2 months, I just need to be like working and not dealing with every new thing that's coming up. And I'm dropping things every single day to be responsive to every single question that comes in. But this is the consequence of that. I think it was almost 2 o'clock in the afternoon today before I could even breathe, because I had a revolving door of people stopping into my office, and none of those were unproductive, but I can't keep like doing there's a lot that we're trying to do. So.
What would you think about, working from home one day a week, just so you could actually work? I mean, and not be interrupted? Would there be any benefits? to
It
that?
probably would, because there is a lot of walk-in traffic, but,
At least that way you wouldn't be put in the position of telling somebody, you know, you can't talk to
yeah,
them.
no, it is true. I mean,
Yeah.
people stop in, they see I'm in there, and, you know, if I hear, I mean, you know, Jack Duggan stopped in this morning, oh, Jack coming in, because
Yeah,
he
no,
came
I
to see
get
me,
it.
like, he
Yeah.
doesn't, like, I'm not gonna not
Yeah.
sit with him, and it was 5 minutes, it was not, but it's all adds up. You know, it could help, but as you know, even when I take a vacation day, I'm still sending
Yeah.
a couple of dozen emails on my vacation day, because
It's a lot more than I've been on the receiving end of those.
yeah, because that's what it takes to run a town. So it's there's no, you know, this is the reality of running a town. The challenge we have is that we have a form of government with a tremendous amount of day-to-day responsibility sitting on my shoulders, whereas some people in a town manager form of government have a budget director, they have a finance director, they have an HR office. Obviously, we're a small town. I'm not suggesting for a minute we need those things. What I'm saying is the same thing I've been saying for 5 years, is that we don't calibrate our ambitions to our staff. We try to do everything, to the nth degree, regardless what our staffing is. And, you know, we've done a pretty heroic job keeping up with all that over the years. But when, you know, you take something like this Whittier thing, and how many, just in the last couple of weeks, how many extra meetings, and I've got, you know, a bunch of emails today from the region, you know, Mayor Reardon and Mayor Gove, and Mayor Reardon's having another Zoom meeting this Wednesday afternoon. It's like, do I go and lose another hour to Whittier? Like, just in the last couple of weeks, you know, I've probably lost 20 hours to the Whittier project. And what do I have to show for it?
Yeah.
Not a whole lot, you know. So there's nothing to be done about it, but I did feel that, you know, there's such a critical mass, and
Yeah, no, I
especially where
think it's
things like
important.
the personnel evals, where you know the background on that, you know how important that is. For me to deliver on that stuff, like, you know, no one wants to hear, oh, you're too busy, everyone rolls their eyes, whatever. They don't understand, you know, those aren't just words. Like, to deliver on this stuff takes dozens of hours of, like, focused time, and it's very, very difficult when, you know, we're kind of dropping everything constantly to deal with whatever comes in.
Well, I would like to see you move item 24 to number 1. I'm serious.
Yeah.
I think that has to happen. In order for you to do all these other things, you've got to take time for yourself.
Yeah, I mean, right now I've got like 40 of those on my calendar. I'm taking the day before Thanksgiving, and I'm taking the week between Christmas and New Year's. So that's about, you know, 40 hours. The other 16 and a half, I don't know how, like, I look at my calendar.
Yeah.
I don't know how I can take the time, but I will do everything I can to, because I don't want to give any time back. Because, as you know, I work a lot more than, you know.
Yeah.
It's not like I'm working 40 hours and not giving any back. I'm giving, you know, I'm working way more, and I'll never get that time back. And my family will never get that time back. So it is definitely important. But, you know, week after week, I'm like, oh, I'm gonna take Friday off. And week after week, I'm here on Friday, because there's just no way to do my job without doing my job. And it's a lot that we're juggling.
Yeah.
And even though we have much more staffing than we did 2 years ago, and that's great, it obviously takes, you know, management to keep that staffing aligned and on point, and, you know, keep everyone, you know, kind of aware of how, you know, all the moving parts.
Well, I mean, I do think this is valuable information for us. I hope it didn't take you a lot of time.
No,
to
this,
put it together.
I didn't start this till about 4:15.
This is running list.
Yeah.
No, I did, this took about 10 or 15 minutes.
Okay, well,
Yeah,
I
this
think
was
it's
just
really
kind of
helpful.
like a quick, like, but yeah, this is kind of how I'm always keep my list, so I know what's needed, but,
So do you think once a month provide this, or at every meeting as part of your updates? Or just when you feel there's
I
a
don't
need?
wanna, I don't wanna just come in and vent, I know that's not really helpful to anybody, but,
But I think if it's included in the package, just so they can see.
yeah.
All right, well, I mean, this takes us through the end of this calendar year.
Yeah, and I think, realistically, not every, some of these things have to happen and they will. And some of them will be at some stage of completion and I think everything will, a lot of it's already at some stage of completion,
Yeah.
but I just, it's
Okay. All right, what's the next item? Speaking of Ash Street. So is this an action item? There's nothing we need to do here, other
Now
than,
for tonight, I think what would be helpful is, obviously, it's gotta be submitted by January 31st, so I think it would be helpful to know, what, I'm assuming, since the board voted the checklist to go to Natural Heritage, that you probably wanna see the, traffic control plan before it goes in. So I think if we pencil that in for, maybe a early January meeting, you guys see a draft, if you're happy with it, it goes out then, but.
Who's actually composing that plan?
It'll be a combination of Butch, Dwyer, Michelle, and I'll provide some kind of oversight, but I think, I was actually quite surprised at how lean their comments were on that.
Yeah.
Agreed, yeah.
Many conditions.
I kept looking for the missing page.
Right, we did too, yeah, so I don't think we need to overthink it.
Yeah.
I think it's partly, documenting what we've been doing this summer with Michelle doing the mortality surveys before the road work and, letting the maintenance go a bit longer between, so it's a natural traffic calming. It's, it really shouldn't be a big lift to do it.
I have gotten more than one comment. Ash Street's a mess.
it is, it's getting to the point where because people have to drive on the wrong side of the road in order to
Well, slow
avoid the
down, they
ruts.
don't have to drive on the other side.
Wow. Yeah,
I think it's perfect.
okay, well, that's
I
not
just
gonna
don't
be a
drive
huge
that
lift.
road anymore.
Yeah, I
That's why it's
started going
perfect, there
around.
you go. I said that the other day too.
So is that reasonable, put it on for maybe the first January
Yeah, I
meeting?
think so.
And then
Yeah.
there's a safety valve, if it's not where it needs to be, you guys have another bite at it before it goes to the state. So we put it on for the second.
All right, pickleball.
Pickleball.
Hey, that's my dog's name.
So, I think there's some misunderstanding on the Park and Rec Commission. This is not limited to West Newbury seniors, right? Anybody can sign up. Well,
That's part of my concern, is I feel that they are saying things in public meetings
Yeah.
that are not in fact correct.
right. The other thing is that they seem to conflate the housing authority residents with the Council on Aging. They keep saying, they think that those are the people that are using it. I'm not sure they understand that the Council on Aging is like the whole town and beyond. So anyway, I mean, that struck me, the statements have been made in a couple of meetings to that effect, so I don't know if some re-education might be.
Just while you're looking at that memo, I have the same thing. It says they approved a 2-hour window each morning from 9 to 11. No, they didn't. They had Tuesday mornings, and they gave them Friday as a safety valve, so it's one day, they're basically 2 hours a week.
But that's not how the advertisement is. I mean, it's Tuesday and Friday, 9 to 11.
She actually put out a schedule, and it's like either Tuesday or a Friday.
Yeah, it's Tuesday, but if it rains Tuesday, it goes to Friday.
So
Yeah.
that's misrepresented. It's not 5 days, 6 days a week. It's, and by the way, you were at the meeting, weren't you? And so was Agnes and myself, and it was unfortunate it wasn't recorded, I guess. So I went the following Tuesday to listen to this horrific noise, and they weren't playing Tuesday because it was too wet to stripe the line, so I went
bet
Friday.
it was pretty quiet.
It was not a whole lot noisier on Friday when they were playing. I mean, then two people laugh. That's about the sound. I mean,
Yeah, I think, although I've never played pickleball, and quite honestly, I haven't even watched it, but my impression from talking with other people who do with regularity is that in certain groupings, it becomes very boisterous. People having a lot of fun and being, fairly loud.
if there were
But-
10 or 12 courts, I would understand the
Yeah.
noise could become insipid and drive you
Yeah.
crazy. I stood there and watched for, I don't know, 15, 20 minutes.
Yeah.
The noise going down the street with the cars and the trucks was significantly louder than the pickleball play, which really was baffling.
Yeah.
'Cause they made a comment at their meeting that the decibel level on the pickleball was louder than a leaf blower. That's not good information, because I guarantee if I stood there with a leaf blower and they played pickleball, you're gonna hit a leaf blower.
I think part of it depends on the level of play also, if there's like 1, 2.
That's why I did my thing very, it
I
was.
know, but that typically, I have heard like, serious pickleball, and it is loud. And
I've
it's
got a
in-
neighbor that's got one by me, and
Yeah,
I don't even hear it.
yeah.
But my wife goes, oh, they're playing pickleball again. So certain people pick up on it. And again, I would understand the concern at the park if they said, we want to put 10 courts in there. And it was, every day of the week and going, that'd be different. But this program is pretty innocuous. And
Well, I think one of the concerns is that it's taking time away from use of the court as a basketball court.
Friday at 9 in the
I'm
morning,
just saying, it's not just the noise, these are some of the other concerns that were raised. I think the larger issue is there's clearly a demand for it, and so what's the alternative?
Well, that's-
Where else can we
they've
put
got
it?
a plan for the future.
The irony is that there was all sorts of argument about having a basketball court back how many years
I
ago?
remember
was
that.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
People were up in arms that there was going to be a basketball court there.
Yeah. There's some strategically placed arborvitae that are acting as a sound barrier.
So again, the long-term plan is gonna have to be to accommodate, because it is the wave of the future, obviously,
Right.
everybody wants it.
Yeah.
But all your basic, we talked about the building at Page School, that's a non-starter as far as I can see.
Yeah, I assumed that, but Sam's memo pretty much.
How do you play there in the summer, first of all?
Yeah.
Hot enough, so anyways, I'm not even gonna address the memo. So all you basically need is a flat place where you can throw down some lines and put up a net. Now,
How wide are the roads?
well, that's not a crazy thought. So the parking lot's out back here. In the middle of the week, you could close off one of the parking lots. You got half of one, traffic can still pass on the other one. You can have courts
You're
out
saying
here.
out by the bandstand?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, yeah, Park and Rec has a nice parking lot out there.
Well, you've got two parking lots.
Yeah,
Or
You've got
even
three.
the lower one by
You
the
got this
ball
one,
field.
the middle, and then the back one. So either one of those could become a default
Yeah.
pickleball court.
Yeah.
Or another thought, Pipe Stave Hill, where they have the parking for the horse trailers. Pave that section. The 5 days a year, the horse trailers are there. They park on the pavement. The rest of the year, you pickleball it.
I think that's within the
That's a
CR.
conservation restriction there.
There's a set out. You check your conservation restriction. You had the DPW, you had the recycling, you had the parking, and you had the horse rinks. Those, I believe, are excluded from the conservation restriction. So at some point, you might want to check that.
We had the GIS layer corrected because it never used to show the municipal use area.
Yeah, they pulled out specific uses when
Yeah,
they
no,
did
I
that
know,
restriction.
it does now show.
For some reason, I thought that there was a specific wording, disallowing additional paving.
Yeah, the only, anything in the crosshatched area, there's no paving allowed.
Can you zoom in so we can see the DPW?
There's plenty of room up front there to pave.
Right, so the rings are within,
Yeah.
okay. Yeah, so we're not gonna solve the problem for them. I suggested that they apply for CPA funding to do a feasibility study and identify, potential
Well, that's
sites.
the first appropriate step.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good
Yeah.
idea.
But actually, the idea of using like the Parks and Rec parking lot in the middle of the day.
It was brought up, and the people that play pickleball say the asphalt is bad.
Yeah,
you know,
you
for
need
terms
to,
of-
you need a better surface.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you'd have to,
Something smoother, cause
Okay.
yeah, the asphalt with the rubble is gonna, the bounce is
Okay.
gonna be not
Okay.
true.
That'll keep them on their toes a little more.
We already had a couple broken ribs, we don't need any.
Really?
My predecessor. He landed.
Oh, no.
Yeah. I mean, it was that or hit a pole, so he just had to break a rib.
One or the other.
Yeah.
okay, so this is just to keep us informed.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I do, you know, one thing I plan to create a project sheet in the capital program is, you know, even if it doesn't have a dollar figure attached, but to create a pickleball facility. I don't know if, you know, as the capital program's a combination of needs and wants. So I don't know if that's, you know, a broadly supported want. It's obviously a want from some significant number of people. And I kind of agree with what Chris said, that I think it is kind of the future, just based on, yeah, so I've got that penciled in, but where would be the location? And, you know, I do get concerned when there's, statements made in public meetings that really don't reflect the type of, diligence that, you know, like when it's set up there that we're already looking into this other location. It's like, you know, they haven't had a conversation with the building inspector or done any amount of serious diligence, but representing in front of a room full of residents
Yeah.
that they have, it's kind of, I don't like that. I didn't like that. Cause I don't wanna have to, you know, call someone out in public at their own meeting that they're hosting, but if they're saying things that just are not well informed, you know, I don't wanna let the residents who are there think that that's actually correct, because it's really not correct. So I mentioned the elevator, cause I knew that was like something I knew, but I had, you know, I knew Sam was working on this memo, and I knew there was gonna be all kinds of problems, and I was a little concerned that it was, a representation was made as if that was like practically imminent, and it's like, that's simply untrue, like, it's just not true, at all.
So I don't recall if you sent this memo to Park and Rec.
I meant to, but I didn't
Okay.
yet, but I will send it to them.
Okay.
But I thought Wendy's suggestion was the right next step, is some kind of credible feasibility study.
Looking at, but there was no specific parcel.
No, that would,
No,
you have to
identify the
include, you know,
parcels.
just looking at all non-conservation restricted town-owned parcels, and properties. Just start with a,
Parking, you know, all the different issues. Noise.
I can't hear, what are you doing?
Yeah, I'll have to try it one of these days.
It's
Pickleball.
actually pretty fun.
Yeah, that's what everybody says. I just haven't gotten around to trying it, I guess.
My dad was like a pioneer. Like
Oh, really?
15 years ago, yeah.
Is he an ace?
He thinks he is.
Yeah.
I've beat him a few
Ouch,
times.
that stings, I'm sure. Hope Dad's not watching.
Man, I really hope he doesn't like these meetings.
all right, next item is just informational, no action needed, but since you all are the, sponsors of the water leveler device, I wanted to keep you apprised on that.
And so what is the significance of the fact that DEP is weighing in here?
We'll back it up, didn't the neighbor object to this beaver deceiver,
Yes,
as
Yeah.
they called it?
yeah.
For what reason? I didn't quite understand the whole.
It's to do with the, what's I think the appropriate water level.
Yeah. She didn't feel that it would address her complaint, which is the water level's too high and impinging on her yard.
Okay.
So, but I'm just not clear on what DEP is doing here. I mean, they're considering a superseding order of conditions, and they need the information related to that. Is that what this request is?
I don't know, you have more experience than I do.
I
I know
just-
that, we had the site visit with them in early September,
Mhm.
and, we just, yeah, I know there was some scratching of heads around here as to the passage of time and with no follow through, and then we got the request for information, and, Paul turned around a detailed response quickly, which was nice.
Mhm.
But where it goes from here, I don't know.
Okay. And so Paul is managing this rather than Michelle? Because it's a,
Well, he responded with a
Yeah,
request for information.
It's his now.
Will this beaver deceiver
Maybe
change
not.
the level of the water at all?
He had pulled a plan from, I forget all the dates, cause there's been a
this
lot
has
of
been a long,
correspondence on this.
yeah.
But, he had basically established the historic water level and is looking for this to be at the location that would sustain that. So, he had a survey plan, it was from, at least 50 years ago. I have all the information, but I don't remember the dates.
What it ought to do is keep it from changing, from getting higher, because,
Mhm.
if it keeps the beavers from doing what beavers do.
Anything else on that, Chris?
No, good, thank you.
And everything else is just, miscellaneous updates. I did include the town clerk report, the recent town meeting.
So, I noticed that, the water department report is not in here. I don't know if that should be added, Jim.
So the report from Bob.
Yeah, I don't see it.
I noticed that too, is the only one.
Um,
He did it right with the article.
Yeah, even though the article wasn't theirs.
those 6.
Yeah,
Yeah, I can add his comments. Yeah. More specific comments if you'd like.
I just, since the other reports are in there.
Sure.
This is very timely. I don't think we've ever had a town meeting report, minutes so soon after.
I will not take 100% of the credit. Max did a first run through,
Yeah.
which he did the next day, and that just kind of set us up for success. So I did my revisions. I gave to Rebecca and Jenny, and they gave me back their revisions. We
Wow.
gave Angus our 4th draft. He made,
got a bunch of revisions.
yeah, he made his revisions. And then after that, Jenny and I did it once more over.
Great.
We did miss one thing, and Sue pointed it out. I don't know if this one has the updated. We said this FinCom was against something at one point, which wasn't true at all. I think it was just a copy and paste.
You're never against anything, right?
No, everyone approved everything. But
Even when they didn't get asked, Rob had to interject that they approved.
But,
Well, I got confused when I said surprisingly, and I said FinCom.
Right.
So we have to throw them out.
yeah, Sue, I think it was 15. So this one is correct. At 15, Sue had pointed out to me that we'd written in, recommended against the article, but it said it was a positive vote, so I guess it was half right.
Right.
Next one's just, these school building committee meetings have been going on for many, many years, and we don't typically share the minutes, but where it was, it's really ended up being the last kind of regular meeting. There will just be meetings as needed, but the meetings have been pretty much every month for more than the 5 years I've been going to them. So it's definitely a milestone where we're kind of really in the final stages of the project, so it seemed timely to just go ahead and share this information with the board. Wendy and I obviously get those minutes every month as members of the committee, but that will be nice to have, one fewer regular meeting a month.
rub his belly, see if he goes to sleep.
It's a bad stink bug.
Yeah, well, that's why I smack.
Only if you kill it.
Too much.
No, they don't do anything bad. They can kind of weird you out sometimes.
Yeah, when they land
you're not
randomly in a
expecting.
meeting. I would have a much worse reaction if they did that.
There he goes.
All right, last item,
And then,
charge point.
Yeah, I mean, I sometimes include these,
Yeah.
sometimes I don't, they're just kinda curious. We have them for every month, going back if, but it's just kinda,
What do you think, Rick?
Um,
Was this you on September 9th?
Although if I don't plug in here that often, I mean, I generally just plug in when I get home, and I only, a full charge for me, if I had gone to the, to as far as my car will go, would only be 5.5 kilowatt hours.
Oh.
So I have a little tiny battery for,
Yeah.
just for
That's substantial.
the big one there.
More than 100 kilowatt, but that's the
Yeah.
cumulative for the whole day, right?
Yeah.
What does John plug in?
they have, didn't they put a charger in over the garage? for
Yeah,
the-
they do, yeah.
For the new Ford Lightning.
Maybe you need to get home. That's plugged in before you.
All right. Any other updates?
Rick, at some point, we have the issue of what we're charging and whether that's the right amount.
Right, yeah, I mean, I have no idea what the sensitivity is of the market, to price, but we are higher than pretty much everywhere else around by some amount, not by a huge amount, but, you can, we don't need to talk about it at length, but, we're a little bit higher, and whether or not that actually influences whether people choose to plug in. I mean, if they're gonna only get 20 kilowatt hours, which would be, almost 4 times what I could do with my car, but if they were gonna get just 20 kilowatt hours and it cost them an extra nickel a kilowatt hour, so they'd spend an extra 80 cents or an extra $1, does that,
I can't
do
imagine.
people,
I think
people
it's a
worry about that?
convenience.
Yeah, exactly. So, I don't know. I don't know how we get more usage. I don't know how to stimulate more usage. I mean, there's some people who take advantage of it regularly. Somebody who lives in the senior housing has a Leaf, and they plug in regularly. I mean, that's the ideal situation.
All right, anything else? Chris?
Same 3 agenda items I requested. Update on Long Hill APR, that you did a site walk, I'd like to have that on the agenda at some point. ARPA funds, at what point and how do we move on from if it's not gonna get used on the bridge? And if we can make a request to the FinCom to do an analysis of free cash versus stabilization.
So are these items that you want action on, or you
Like them on
want
the
to
agenda
discuss?
so we can discuss, yeah.
So that last one, I know, I think we had talked about at least indicating our interest in it, and,
We've never moved further.
right. Would, maybe at the next meeting, somebody from the FinCom would wanna, just talk about that for a minute.
If it's on the agenda, he
It was
goes.
on the agenda. Would that be a possibility, Rob?
Sure.
I'm as tired as you are, I think.
No, I'm just, so, fine,
All right. Anything for you?
No.
All right.
If it gives you any solace, Chris, all of those are on the
They are on the-
future.
yeah.
Well, I saw the opera one, but it's,
Yeah, but we have when we have the list, and then we have the future list, and then every week we
Anytime somebody
Push
says
it
something,
forward.
we add it to the future
just out of
list.
the future list would populate probably 3 or 4 meetings worth of content, so. bring them forward when they're ready and when they're timely, but it's.
So how do you feel the relative priority of those three items are? High, medium, low?
I think the analysis of FinCom is pretty high. I'd like to see that obviously done before Springtown meeting, because it's an issue we've been struggling with and looking kind of silly and hoping to have some clear direction on it.
Okay.
And I don't think it'll take them a lot to do it. Long Hill, that should be a 5-minute update. And the opera funds, that will probably have more discussion. So neither of those two are critical, but at a certain point, the ARPA will have a deadline that we'll be up against.
Yeah. No, I think ARPA, like I said, that is gonna dovetail nicely with the capital program. So I think, having 2 weeks from tonight, having a list of everything approved and other things.
And I caught that with your comments, and you said,
Yeah.
For purchases, which we had
Yeah.
said, versus projects, which would be,
Or one-time expenses,
yeah.
Yeah, no.
Again, we don't want a lot of upfront time taken away with it either,
Right.
which we'd mentioned previously, but yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I don't see us running into a problem spending the ARPA money because, unless we wait for another year and a half. There will be.
But it might be more philosophical stance, because quite honestly, I don't think it should be piecemealed to death by small requests. That's just my impression with Page School. It might be great to have a philosophical discussion as much as anything. What?
Well, pickleball, that's where it's gonna happen, if all of a sudden,
Oh, it's gonna be.
this is why we have to sort of sort that out ahead of time.
Right. We could buy $700,000 worth of pickleball courts.
You gotta find us pickleball courts this side.
With quiet
With the in-laws.
surface
Right.
material.
I was gonna say, you
Right,
got
right,
those
right.
sound reducing floors, yeah.
So, yeah, the rackets.
No, but that's it.
We'll put in actually noise canceling speakers.
A good comment though, you don't wanna piecemeal it out on $20,000 here, $20,000 there, realize you just pilfered it away.
Right, yeah. Solar powered noise canceling speakers.
All right, this is getting out of control. All right,
With battery backup.
great.
Motion to
Motion to
adjourn.
adjourn.